coming to you live. Here we're on the Schuylkill River, and it's home to many weird fish-like creatures, and also the depository of all the unsolved crimes and murders in Philadelphia. Yeah. We are here today with another episode of the PondCast, and this time episode 34. Wait, no. 34. And we have a little bit of a lighter one, but still plenty to talk about, despite there being fewer announcements this week. Still a lot to talk about. I, of course, Yahoo of the Zaku, and with me today is El de los Bichos que nados hasta el arrecife de murciélagos, like _VIP, and as always, we are being produced by Wyspaniela Sova Kitora Nie Muzi Kupovac Samogloshik Kuro 60 Squad Senseki. How we all doing? Go Birds!
Murciélagos, papi.
Ah!
God damn it. Good to be back. Good to be back, Yaku, once again. Another week, another edition of the PondCast. Exactly. It's great to be back once again with your weekly dose of CranKy Duckling action, of news, catching up on all the news here in StarCraft 2. And you're telling me, what, we're not going to spend 2 hours talking about one video this week?
I mean, we can.
We might actually. We
could.
could.
And if we don't hit that mark, we can watch live react to another video.
True. We got them all lined up, mate. But yes, as you mentioned, as is tradition here, every single week we have been receiving a new GLHF interview. Shout out to Zombie Grub, of course, for traveling to Korea for conducting all those interviews. And we had one coming out of left field this week, as we had an interview with John the Translator. Crazy.
Very left field that we're not getting another two-parter this time.
True. No two-parter here, but yeah, it caught me off guard. John the Translator hasn't really been in StarCraft for a very, very long time. But of course has his own ties to it, especially early on. Definitely has some very momentous moments that are tied to him, especially when it comes to his infamous speech at BlizzCon or at the GSL finals. Yeah, he definitely has made his mark in the history of StarCraft, and I was really not expecting to get an interview out of him, of all players or people.
Yeah, definitely. Like you were saying, one of the OGs, somebody who was honestly a little bit before my time, but like you said, definitely left his mark. His infamous in Korea, but famous everywhere else in the world speech at BlizzCon, as he puts it. Yeah, I remember that was something that I stumbled across when I was first really getting into StarCraft 2 and being like, okay, I want to understand all these what people are talking about, so I guess I'll dive into some stuff that happened in the past. And yeah, BlizzCon 2011, with where you had the GSL finals between MVP and MMA, I believe, and then also separately there was an MVP Nesty show match or something like that, where John the Translator did go up after it was all over, interviewed the players, interviewed the winners obviously, and then gave a very off-the-cuff speech at the end where he was like, "This is great." And yeah, that's one of the first things that will pop up if you really look into specifically StarCraft 2 history. I'm not sure about StarCraft overall.
Yeah. I mean, I only know it because I mean, there are a lot of like compilation like esports videos of SC2, and that's like a big often is used and has been a part of that as well. So like I didn't even see the original, just saw like clips made like in big compilation videos or something like that when it comes to like tributes to StarCraft or tributes to Wings of Liberty as well. So yeah, it's definitely an OG, and it was really cool to hear from his I would say very unique perspective. He reminded me a little bit of Chobra a little bit when it comes to the fact that like Chobra, he was like never really into like Brood War, never really into too much StarCraft. Like it was like passively consuming it. In a way, a little
in a way.
Yeah, where John the Translator, he mentioned how he like grew up, outside of Korea. He grew up in Europe. Then he kind of came over, and yeah, he was able to like get into StarCraft a little bit by playing with his friends, and then got into the esports a little bit later, for a little bit at least when it comes to Brood War.
Yeah, definitely a very interesting perspective. I feel like John the Translator was similar to Garimto
Mm,
in a sense, and where both of them they're just really big RTS fans overall. I think the
mhm,
Muslim actually talked about it at one point in his interview with the SC historian, where he was saying like, "Oh yeah, there are definitely a lot of StarCraft players and a lot of StarCraft viewers who aren't actually really into RTS. They just like StarCraft specifically."
mm.
John the Translator and Garimto, those two, not really the case. At least from what I gathered from these videos, I remember John the Translator even talking about total annihilation, which is like,
Mhm.
on the one hand, it's kind of funny where he's like, "Oh, I don't even know if people will know about this." I remember when he said that, I was like, "Come on, John, that's like one of the legendary RTS games." And I was like, "Wait, but that's only legendary amongst people who play a lot of RTS games. That's like not."
Mhm.
Yeah, he has a point. That's actually not that well known outside of the RTS circles.
Yeah, for sure. It is a little bit more of a niche game, and it was really cool to hear like his beginnings. I found it most interesting when he was talking about working for GSL, right? Because
Mhm.
he spoke about how like he was again he was kind of like a passive fan of StarCraft for Brood War, at least for a couple of years, not for the entirety of it, but for a couple of years. Like he was interested, then he lost interest. Then he actually got into working in StarCraft. He got into it by playing World of
Back
Warcraft. Like he
yeah,
mentioned, like yeah, like how like one of his guildmates happened to like have connections with like GOMTV, and then they got him a job as being a translator.
yeah. So it's
So
funny how those work out. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, it was just a
it was
yeah, just
similar with.
a
I feel like that's a very common case in a lot of people who end up working in esports. What's his name? Maddox actually talked about it as well. I guess in Maddox's case it was a little bit different because it wasn't so. In this case with John the Translator, he was in a guild of a guy who was connected with GOMTV, and then he said, "Hey, GOMTV are looking for people who can speak and understand English.
Mhm.
Are you interested?" Whereas in Maddox's case, it was more of he was in a clan, a PlanetSide 2 clan with Winter Gaming, and then at a certain point, Winter was like, "Hey, why don't you check out the stuff I do?" And then Maddox was like, "Oh, this is cool. I want to do this now."
Yeah. It was really interesting to kind of hear that kind of like crazy connection that kind of came out of nowhere and kind of sent him down the path of StarCraft 2, right? And for me, at least for this interview, again, we kind of breezed our way through like kind of like the brutal era. It was really interesting just to hear like his insights on GOM TV, kind of like getting into it as well and working for them. For those that don't remember, like GSL used to be the GOM TV Star League back in the day before Afrika TV, and he actually spoke a little bit more about what happened
It,
to GOM TV, about how back in the day, I'm sure a lot of old school viewers remember this, but GOM TV wasn't actually featured on Twitch. It wasn't featured on YouTube. I mean, the VODs
they
were
had their own
eventually
player.
uploaded. Yes, they infamously they had their own GOM TV player, and it was definitely notorious for being a little bit laggy, for not necessarily being the best platform, but also you could watch it for free at 360p. You had to pay for 720. Like you had to pay for like for better quality like of the VOD, I mean, and you had to pay to watch it live as well. Like it was all like a paid service sort of thing to actually watch it. And he spoke about how when Blizzard kind of stepped in and when they kind of introduced the WCS system, they removed the fact that they brought it to Twitch and they removed the fact that it had to be paywalled, and they didn't really have
They
any
were not.
sponsors
Yeah.
or yeah, they didn't really have any kind of income to sustain themselves as a business without that kind of paywall system.
Yeah, because all the sponsors at that point they weren't really looking at Gome at all. They were
Hmm.
looking at all these other like Afrika definitely much bigger as both a platform and as a company.
Hmm.
That was a lot more attractive, not just to streamers and not just to viewers, but also like you were saying to
Hmm.
sponsors and stuff like that. So Gome TV couldn't really get away with what they were doing anymore. So yeah,
Hmm. Yeah. It's a little bit bittersweet, right? Because in general, a lot of people had an issue with the way that you had to watch StarCraft. Like it was
it
just behind so many walls to actually get to that content, so it became more accessible. But on the downside, like it did mean
yeah
that like the company as a whole had to sell their business, and they couldn't really
yeah.
sustain themselves.
I feel like overall that was for the scene that was probably a better thing in the end. But I mean,
Yeah.
John himself talks about it in this video. It's like GOM TV for throughout Wings of Liberty, they were the only ones who were really in
Hmm.
Korea anyway, who were really producing content and organizing all these tournaments for StarCraft 2, and then all of a sudden you would switching to Heart of Swarm and with WCS, it felt like like you were mentioning, it felt like all that work. I see what's saying it. At a certain point,
Mm.
he was kind of thinking, was all this work for nothing? Like now, all
Mm.
these people, we don't know if they're gonna still have jobs after this transition. There's like no guarantee. Like what? To what end is this? Like what is going to be the outcome of GSL being taken over by Afrika and going on Twitch and YouTube and stuff like that?
Yeah, this actually ties into another interview. I think it was the Choba interview where they kind of touched on the fact that a lot of the Korean companies, they especially back then, they weren't really good when it comes to like global representation and global sponsorship and making money that way, and reaching out to like the international
Yeah.
audience and having like sponsors and ads that can reach them and earn money in different ways. And definitely you can see that as well being the case, not just with the Kesper teams, but with GOMTV as well, where they just, as we kind of, as you mentioned, like they didn't really have another like solid stream of income. Like they just couldn't sustain themselves without that like membership platform. And that, like, looking back, it's like, like, what, really, guys? Like,
Yeah, it's like
we
a
couldn't
yeah.
find another way to like make more money. Like, it definitely is something that a lot of companies had to adapt to later on, and it was a little bit more difficult, it seems, for some of the Korean companies to do so.
Yeah, definitely a what's the word I'm thinking of here? Like a messy transition to say the least.
Mhm.
Very like it took a lot for them to make that hard switch, but in the end, I feel like it was for the better.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. He spoke about the acquisition of Africa TV. Again, like it was beneficial for all, but that's why it was really interesting to hear his perspective, because it was harder for him because he wasn't a part of that transition, right? He was kind of left in the wind for a little bit longer before being picked up again as someone that can translate, that can work for them. So yeah, it was definitely interesting to hear, just because we haven't really heard that perspective before. So it's, yeah, really interesting to hear that perspective. Likewise, you mentioned before as well how I didn't know. I'm sure a lot of people didn't know that apparently there was like a negative reaction to his
Yeah,
speech, that like infamous speech in Korea, just because like it was perceived as if he was like taking the spotlight away from the players in doing so.
yeah. Which again, that's just Korea being Korea in a lot of ways. That's just kind of how should I put this? I'm trying to figure out a way to articulate this, but
Mhm.
yeah, it's once again, it's one of those things where, in general, I feel like we kind of talked about it a little bit in the last week when we were going through the Chober interview, where
Mhm.
we were talking about how generally people like hosts and like whether they're hosts or they're interviewers or they're analysts and stuff like that, they are traditionally not supposed to be that visible in a way. Well, it's kind of weird to say that about hosts, but
Mhm.
you get what I mean, right? It's like it's exactly what you mentioned earlier on, where you do want to shine the spotlight more on the subject of the person that you're interviewing as opposed to the
Mhm.
interviewer itself. And so, but in Korea, that attitude is kind of ramped up by 100.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Like this interview makes me wish that that Zombie Gub maybe should have asked some of these questions to some of the previous interviewees. Specifically, we heard a little bit from it here from John the Translator. We heard a little bit from Choba's interview as well, where sometimes like the Korean fan base can see things or can act to things in a different way, and it'd be really cool to get some insights as to how they are different. I say that I wish that we got some questions like this to other kind of guests, just because both John the Translator and Choba did say that, like, because they didn't really grow up in Korea, like they focused a lot more on like the global audience and like Team Liquid, like they weren't really too ingrained in like the Korean forums, so their perspective is very limited as to what the Koreans were thinking and how they kind of perceive things, how they approach things. Whereas I think you could probably ask that question to like Crank or Ryung or some of the other Koreans that are a little bit more
Yeah,
ingrained there, for that perspective and for that insight. It's something that's kind of lacking from John and Chobra. Um, and yeah, listening to this interview
yeah,
makes me want to know, but we didn't get those questions, right?
yeah.
it's almost like we got that idea after the fact sort of thing, and I'm hoping that we can maybe, I mean, you said it before, right? There's still a lot more interviews to come. It'd be really cool to like know about that, to hear about the Korean fan perspective, right, and how they view things, how they thought of things themselves.
Yeah, well, we'll see if they do end up coming up in the interviews to come. Now
Mhm.
you mentioned it with Ryung. I do remember that he was asked about Imba.
Yeah, yeah,
I like how
yeah.
the reactions may have been a little bit different, but I don't think he really gave. I don't think he
Mhm.
really gave much of an answer to that. He was just like, "Oh yeah, it's I got." I don't think he talked that much about the fan reaction, which, to be fair, I don't think Ryung was really paying attention to the forums or stuff like that much at the time. But still, would have been interesting to try to at least ask him that.
Yeah, yeah, or even like more general questions about like what they care about, like how they view things, what their thoughts are on like foreigners or their own players or Kespa as well. Like we kind of vaguely got answers to that when it comes to like at least the Korean audience perspective in SE2, especially when it comes to like everything that was happening with Kespa and Brood War. Like we got like some more general overviews of that. But it would be nice to have heard about like that transition and what the general vibe was when it comes to like Kespa switching over to SE2 and GSL and everything like that. It's I think we got a lot of like personal answers to that, like from like Maddox and stuff. Like
Mhm.
they spoke about their personal thoughts and their personal perspectives. But it would be nice to get like a more general idea of how like the Korean audience was reacting to a lot of this stuff
Yeah, I can
if
agree
they
with you
knew.
on that one.
But yeah. Just because like we don't know, right? Like we don't know, like we don't.
We're not Korean,
We're not.
so
Yeah, we're not.
yeah.
Yeah, we're not a part of that, right? So be interesting.
As much as we've tried to sneak our way in,
Ah, smart,
I,
smart.
ca- I don't know how they were able to tell that we're not, but apparently they always can.
There
I
you
don't know
go.
what
There you
gave us
go.
away.
Also, quick
Yeah.
shout out to M Canning as well. Big shout out to M Canning for giving us a raid. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. Hope you guys
Woo!
had a great stream. Hope you guys had a great ladder session. I'm assuming, and welcome to the podcast. We're just going over the Zombie Grub GLHF interview with John the Translator.
Yeah, welcome M Canning's viewers, and thank you very much M Canning for the rate. Go Birds!
There you go. There you go. Something that was really interesting to hear as well, that was really cool that wasn't aware of, is he actually mentioned how because of their contract or because of their ties with Blizzard, there were certain things that they couldn't do. I'm referring to GOMTV, before
Yep,
they switched over to Afrika, and how they weren't allowed to use GameHeart initially. They wanted
that
to, but they
was
weren't
so
allowed to
weird.
use it.
Yeah,
Yeah, for GSL. And but there was kind of like a loophole, and they were allowed to have more freedom for GSTL, and they actually started using it there, and that actually helped
and
like grow and improve the product itself.
and then at a certain point, Mike Morheim or someone was like watching GSTL, and was like, "Why don't we use this for the individual league? Like, what are we doing?" And then eventually, yeah, GSL was allowed to use GameHeart after that.
Yeah, well, if you remember, it was actually many years later. I think it was maybe late Heart of the
Late
Storm
part of
or
Storm, because in
beginning of
2014 they were
Legacy of the
still
Void.
using the. In 2014 they were still using like not the default viewer, but another like Blizzard made viewer that was better, I would
Yeah,
say, than the default, but
well,
still GameHeart.
yeah, what I'm referring to is around Legacy of the Void. They actually contracted the person that made WCS Gameheart, and then he made WCS like the Pro Observer mode that we now use, which is I think the third version. But he made the original one, like it was contracted to make it
GSL
custom.
2020. That's what we
Yeah,
used.
yeah, yeah. And that's what they
Before that
started
was
using.
WCS 3.0, which was based on
Mhm.
GameHeart, which because again was made by the same guy who made
Yeah.
the GameHeart mod.
Yes, yes. So eventually they made their own official version, but like I'm sure a big part of that was the fact that I mean it was debuted in GSTL, and the guy was I'm sure motivated to improve it because he was talking about how like they were like in talks about like maybe changing some things or updating some things and making it better, and yeah, it was just really cool to hear that story about how I mean potentially without that then maybe we wouldn't have gotten Game Hard and how we see it now.
Yeah. As everyone knows, the interface achieved perfection with WCS 3.0, so
But more or
ain't
less, more or
really
less, you
much
know.
after that.
more or less. Uh, but yeah, outside of that, did we get anything else that you
Uh,
wanted to touch on?
I think he mentioned at one point that Kespa, that there's. I think the way he described it was there's a misconception that Kespa is a government agency, which
Mm,
technically true, but also it feels like it's kind of splitting hairs a little bit because what John said was correct. Kespa wasn't created by the government to regulate esports or anything like that, which I have to admit that was my understanding of Kespa as well. Was it was built by the ground up by the Korean government for regulating esports, but that wasn't really the case. It was just a bunch of different teams and a bunch of different like sponsors and also esports organizations that independently kind of came together and were like, okay, we need to get together and legitimize this thing
mhm,
and form some kind of association to make it actually legitimate. And
mm.
so, yeah, that's how it formed independently. But I did look this up after watching the interview. Later down the line, they did end up not merging, but they are now under the Korean Ministry of Culture. So
Mhm.
they're not exactly a government agency, but they're under a government agency, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a nice distinction for him to make. It's a distinction that wasn't made by any of the previous interviewees, even those that were asked about it. Because I think the assumption is that it is like a government
It's
agency,
yeah,
but
it's one of those
yeah,
things where it just gets repeated so often that people are like, yeah,
Mhm.
that sounds true, sounds legit,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
and also yeah, it's an important distinction, but I think for a lot of like lay people, there's like it's under the ministry, so it's part of the government, and so that's most people's how most people interpret it.
Yeah, yeah. So I do agree. I think it was good that he made that distinction again, especially if you're gonna be creating. Because again, remember these are just the interviews. But if you're gonna be
Yep.
creating like an overarching documentary about like certain eras of StarCraft, it would be important to like make that distinction and make it clear as to what Kespa was and how it grew and eventually when it became under the Ministry of Culture, right? Like that's like timeline wise, it's probably important to point that stuff out.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I also remembered something else that you were talking about a little bit earlier on about how GOMTV eventually got acquired by Afrika, and then John the Translator in this interview also talked a little bit about how Kespa was a little bit slow or unwilling to really make the switch into StarCraft 2, and so ESF, the Esports Federation, formed specifically for teams that wanted to and players who wanted to participate in GSL and in other StarCraft
Mm-hmm.
2 and in other StarCraft 2 tournaments, and how there was a little bit of a rivalry going on there. There was definitely a lot of flaming on Team Liquid. I mean, John himself even said that he contributed a little bit to those discussions and got into some hot water because of that,
Mm-hmm.
because he was working for GOMTV and they were like, John, you can't be allowed to express strong opinions as a representative of the company. People are going to assume that this is our official stance and stuff like that. And
Mm-hmm.
it kind of reminded me this is a little bit of a tangent, but it kind of reminded me of back in the day, the team Liquid writers used to do like year in reviews for StarCraft 2, and almost every single year when they were like best rivalry, it was some bullshit. Like it was there was only okay, two instances I can think of where
Mm-hmm.
the best rivalry, quote unquote, were like legitimate rivalries. 2019 or 2019? Yeah, 2019 when they said Cyril and Raynor. That was a good rivalry. And 2011, I think, when they were like evil geniuses versus Liquid. Every other year, it was some bullshit like 2014, Sue versus First Place is the
Yeah,
biggest rivalry and stuff like that.
yeah.
I remember 2012, they said the biggest rivalry, Kespa versus ESF. And I was like, when they mentioned ESF, that just like popped into my head all of a sudden. I was like, oh, I need to go back and like look into that all those disputes and all those discussions between
Mm,
the Kespa fans and the ESF fans, because that's I think something that a lot of people have kind of forgotten about now. There was a lot of controversy
mm,
surrounding the like what's going to happen to the ESF, what's going to happen to the ESF players and all that after Kespa makes a legitimate switch. Will they all have to join Kespa teams? What's going to happen to like FX Open or Prime
Hmm.
and all those other stuff? And some of them did eventually join Kespa. I think Prime and
Yeah, they did.
Startail that started off as
Mhm.
ESF teams joined Kespa, but like yeah, stuff like FX Open and was OGS an ESF team?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, like OGS and what's the
Incredible
one? Incredible
Miracle.
Miracle,
There
FX
was
Open. They just kind of
MVP.
ended up disbanding.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure, for sure. I agree. Like, in the sense that it was really cool to have heard a little bit of that ESF, and this also is like that's like a big part of StarCraft history there that for some reason wasn't really brought up in the previous interviews. And I think if you remember, we spoke about this when Crank and Ryung were being interviewed. We spoke about how it was kind of weird that they like kind of glazed over the GSTL period because
Yep,
that was like the
the
last season
last
and that was
hurrah
last
of
year.
ESF.
Exactly, exactly. And it would have been really cool to have heard a little bit more about that specific period in history. Because you're right, because there were so many teams there, like, as you mentioned, like FX Open and Incredible Miracle and MVP and StarTale and Azubu as well. And of
Forgot
course,
about
Axiom.
Azubu.
They were the
They're like
finalists
they were
alongside
the
Axiom.
finalists. Yeah. Do they still have their league roster? I don't think they're around anymore.
There were others as well. There's like NH Hosa or something like that. There were just a bunch of teams, and yeah, like that was a big part of like early Wings and Heart of the Swarm that I just realized that throughout all these interviews there hasn't been anything talking about any of that like at all, like outside of this and again a little bit of GSTO with Crank and Ryung. But I feel like there's that like period in time, I feel like there's some rich history there. They briefly talk about like individual players at the time, like MC or like Idra or Jaedong. Like they have discussed some like or MVP, like this they've this or MKP, like they discuss like individual players and their dominance in certain eras. That's true, but they haven't spoken about the scene as a whole, especially in Korea. That just hasn't been spoken about yet, which is just kind of weird, because I feel like there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, there definitely is.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, there definitely is. Part of me wonders if it's because, like I said, that's something that I think a lot of us kind of forgot about as well.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but I'm sure if you bring it up, then they will probably
Mm-hmm.
be able to remember a couple of things.
100%, 100%. I agree. I think it's something that maybe we take for granted, or because it's just so. The problem is that there's just so much history in StarCraft, and I say
Exactly. Yeah,
StarCraft
that's what I'm.
because
Yeah.
mm,
No, I was gonna say
yeah,
that's kind of what I meant because so much has happened that
mhm, yeah.
some things just end up being pushed in the back of your mind, right? It's like if
Mhm.
it's like in school in history class when your teachers be like, "Okay, here's all the stuff, and this is like really important for context, but also you don't have to remember it for the paper or whatever."
Yeah, especially because I feel like a lot of these interviews have been focusing a lot on like Brood War and SC2 and even like pre StarCraft 2. So because like we're also incorporating that, like it just makes the history even longer for StarCraft as a whole. So
Yeah,
things like that can kind of fall by the wayside. Because I think we have spoken a little bit more about like Wings, for example, and Kespa, of course. But yeah, that like ESF like 2012, 2013 period. They haven't really touched on it too much, and I feel like there was probably a good opportunity to speak about it here, especially because you mentioned like John the Translator was a little bit more vocal at the time, and maybe like reprimanded for it a little bit. But now it's like many years later, you can talk freely. I'm sure he probably has some things to say about that time period, about the players, about the teams, about the state of things, about the tension between ESF and Kespa, what his thoughts were, what the players thoughts were, or maybe like team owners and coaches. I would hope that he has some insight there. Like it would be really nice to have heard like their perspective or their kind of like state of mind like in that era, and whether they were concerned right about their own future, especially when it comes to Kespa coming in. Like they spoke about how like the community was talking about how like Kespa when they came in they would like dominate, and they did, but they weren't talking necessarily about like what were the players thinking, like what was Ryung
yeah.
thinking, what were all these guys thinking about that like eventual like tsunami of players that were coming, and like how they thought about it.
Yeah, speaking of which, that's like also another, I wouldn't say weird, but an interesting I don't another interesting era, shall we put it, where very
Mm.
early on when you had that Kespa transition, it was like you would have players like Parting and like Gumiho and stuff like that who were beating the Kespa pros in the first couple of SC2 tournaments, right? And that kind of
Mm.
gave people pause and maybe made them think, oh, maybe they are like different games after all. But then in 2013 and especially in 2014, that was the year of the Kespa pros. It was like that was the year of innovation and Sue and Zest and
Mhm.
Classic and everyone coming in and just dominating the entire year. But by the time we got into late Heart of the Swarm and early Legacy of the Void, I feel like it was kind of 50-50. Like the players who weren't part of Kespa, or at least originally weren't part of Kespa, the OG ESF players versus the Kespa pros who, I mean, to be fair, a lot of the ESF players ended up joining Kespa teams, right? Like Maru and Dark and stuff like that. But yeah, you still have like Pult and Gumiho and, players who, Rain, who started off as a Kespa player and then eventually left Kespa, and it was only after he left Kespa did he start winning
Mhm.
his did he
True.
start winning tournaments. It's like, yeah, it's an interesting quirk, and especially again nowadays with Kespa not actually being a thing anymore in SC2, and you also have players like you also have foreign players who were never in that environment winning a lot. I feel like we're kind
Yeah.
of reaching a synthesis in a way.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, I think I would stand by and say that like the Casper Pros that came over did end up dominating quite a bit. I
Oh
think
yeah,
as a fan,
and
there was always
yeah, I was just gonna say, and to add to that, the ESF players that I mentioned who ended up dominating, again, Maru, Dark, and stuff, they ended up joining Kespa teams and spent a lot of time in Kespa teams anyway. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. They became Casper players. I think something that hasn't been touched on in any of these interviews, but I wish was spoken about a little bit was because again they barely talk about Heart of the Swarm era of StarCraft for some reason and into Legacy of the Void, but talking about the aftermath of the merging of the regions. Uh, Typically a lot of these interviews
right.
they kind of end around like the region lock era, talking about how like, oh, what do you think about the region lock? Do you think it helped the foreign scene? Um, do you think it hurt the Korean scene? They don't really talk about the aftermath, which is all the Koreans came back to Korea and a lot of players really struggled. I'm referring to players like MC, Tasia. I mean, Jaedong had already retired by then. But a lot of like the quote unquote like Bomer, like he struggled as well. Like a lot of the
I
Koreans
think,
that were competing in
yeah,
WCS Americas when they came back, they
I
yeah, they had a bit of a hard time competing against like the Kes like forced to play in GSL is what I mean.
true. A lot of the Korean players who were mostly competing overseas and were never in a Kespa team came back and, like you said, didn't never were never quite able to replicate their success that they had overseas. In the case
Mhm.
of, in the case of Tasia, I think what's his name? Not Nazgul, but someone was saying like, oh yeah, Tasia in that final season of GSL he played in, he was already planning on retiring, so he wasn't actually
Mhm.
practicing that much. But yeah, it really goes to show how different a Caspar environment when it comes to things like practice can really be compared to being on your own or just not having that much of a regimented experience. I mean, even in a Caspar team, I think Innovation actually spoke about it a little bit in 20 after he won IEM in 2016. IEM, not Pyeongchang, the other one, Gyeonggi, where he was saying like, "Oh yeah, the reason why I underperformed this year is because I was just playing League all the time. Like I would still log in my required practice hours in SC2, but we
Mhm.
all know that that's not enough if you want to become a champion. In every single like spare time that I had, I was just playing League and stuff like
Mhm.
that. So yeah, it really demonstrates how different a regimented environment, what the difference having a regimented environment makes compared to
100%.
having to figure things out on your own.
Yeah, and if you remember, that is why it was so very impressive when Bjorn won. When Bjorn
Yes,
won BlizzCon,
absolutely.
because at the time
Because he
he
had that
came
discipline.
back. Yeah, he came back. He was on his own, no team whatsoever. Like that's why there was so much hype about around Bjorn because he did return. He did rise up in an era where it was dominated by those
He
Kespa teams as well. And I
and
don't know why. these
and he
interviews
had
aren't talking about any of that, but
and he had like no practice partners at all because everybody was
uh-huh,
on a Kespa team and they weren't allowed to practice with people outside the team. So he
uh-huh.
literally had to grind like Oli Moly and Lei Fan Cups and stuff like that in
The
order to
latter.
play
Yeah.
against other pros and the ladder as well.
Hmm.
Yeah, that would be something. Yeah, that would be something really good to bring up actually.
It would. Yeah,
Future
yeah. It
interviews and
would.
be like,
It
what was
kind
the
of would
impact of
be.
Bjorn? What was the impact of Bjorn and Bjorn being the first player to win without a team? Like, did that
Uh-huh.
inspire anybody, or did that? Yeah, especially because somebody. Again, I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to say here because I think she paywalled this information for a reason. But yeah, there's definitely going to be a couple of pro players on the line that this would be an interesting question to bring up with them.
100%, 100%. I think that the problem is that, again, that's like early legacy sort of era of StarCraft, and these interviews don't seem to be focusing on that in that time period, unfortunately. But like that's like what, like 10 years ago, maybe just under 10 years ago, like nine
Holy
years ago,
shit, you're
sort of
right.
thing. Like, like it's quite
That
some time ago, and
And that
that
was
there's plenty of
that was the run that got me into Bjorn's not necessarily GSL run, but BlizzCon run. After watching
Mhm.
BlizzCon, and then after watching Total Biscuit talk about BlizzCon, and be like, "Oh
Yeah,
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 he's the first player who did it without a team." I was like, "Whoa, what? I gotta watch this tournament."
yeah. Like, there's a lot of people that got introduced to StarCraft like when it went free to play or during like the COVID era that know nothing about that. It'd be nice to to chronicle that as well in this interview series, but it's fine. It's fine. It's whatever. But uh, regardless. Overall, it was really nice to hear from him. And again, just I don't think anyone was expecting to hear from John the Translator. Very quickly, there was one
uh,
other thing that I did. Oh, go on.
I'm not sure this is gonna be the same thing. I'm not sure this is going to be the same thing because this is
Okay.
in the topic list, but I was just going to say that if you watched the John the Translator interview and you watched any of the other GLHF interviews and stuff like that, and you were curious about some of the clips that we used in there, I just found out today if you go to
Mhm,
the playlist segment of GLHF, there
mhm.
are playlists and that will say tasteless, for example. That one has the most videos in there that will show you the sources of some of the clips that were used in them.
Yeah, exactly. So check out those playlists. There's a lot of really, as you mentioned, just context clips and videos that can just really give you more insights or can just elevate the experience overall. And I'm sure a lot of that is going to be used in the main documentary as well.
Oh
It's
yeah,
just like
I
a reference to like
yeah.
playlist here.
One, yeah, 100% because that's something that I do. Right? It's like
Mhm.
I need to use this image or this video for a project that I'm doing. Should I bookmark it? Nah, I'm just gonna keep it in a playlist somewhere or in a folder.
Yeah.
Yeah, that anyone can see. I'm just gonna send it to Light, so that in the future
There you go.
I can just go to my Discord DMs of Light and just
Mhm.
search it up. Later on, I'll title this reference A or whatever.
Beautiful, beautiful. I was gonna say that the last thing to touch on that wasn't really a part of the interview, but it for whatever reason like kind of like brought these kind of like feelings or thoughts to the forefront. Was hearing John the Translator speak on BlizzCon again and speak on
Yeah.
working it and that experience. Like we are like we I guess it's a little bit like walking over, or we've gone over this ground before last week talking about how like it's a bit of a shame that BlizzCon isn't around anymore. And we were talking about how like it was.
Or it's still around, but it's a very different thing nowadays.
Yeah,
Where
yeah, yeah.
it feels like it's mostly there for investors.
Yeah, and something that John brought up that is really important to bring up nowadays, just because it isn't really a thing in StarCraft anymore. But he was talking about how like, oh, like he was able to speak to like Mike Morheim and some of the other
Mhm.
developers or higher ups in Blizzard, and at the time like they wanted to work together, or like they were fans of StarCraft, right? They were in the audiences watching and
Yeah,
stuff like that. That isn't a thing
he'll buy,
anymore, but like
he'll
that
buy
was a
everybody
big thing.
pizza.
Yeah. Whenever Mike
Because he
would go to
wanted people to
GSL.
actually, yeah, because he wanted people to stay in the studio and watch it. Because he was like, "No, guys, come on, this is hype. Come on, you're not. If
or
you're
like
hungry,
just
here's some pizza."
or just for like a nice gesture would often like get
Yeah,
everyone like food at the venue and stuff like that. And Mike, he eventually even went to Home Story Cup to watch that live, especially when they were on the
and that
the
was
island
after he
issue.
retired, though, or not
Yeah,
retired,
yeah.
left.
I
Yeah,
mean, but what it shows is that these are people that I mean, that further proves the point that these are people that care, right? These are
True.
people
Yeah.
that care and are
They weren't
fans of
just doing it for
StarCraft.
PR or anything.
Exactly, exactly. They did it because of their love for the game and their love for the esport, and that's something that we're lacking right now, right? That's something that isn't
Yeah.
quite there anymore. It also reminded me when he spoke about the person that worked on Game Heart, they brought up that, oh yeah, like now he's working for Stormgate, right? And it's like it
Mhm.
reminds you as well that that's even though like Stormgate they really did like kind of fumble the ball and they stumbled at the gate. Like it's a reminder as well of a lot of these like ex StarCraft people. There's a reason why there was so much hype around Stormgate. There's a reason why there was so many expectations for Stormgate, and that's because like there are people there that have good
Yeah. Custom
intentions, that care about
router.
RTS.
Big
Yeah, they care
names.
about
Yeah.
they care about StarCraft, that want to create a good product. Clearly, it's harder to do so than maybe
Yeah.
otherwise thought, and they have a long way to go. But like, it's yeah,
Yeah.
it did remind me of that, and it reminded me of something that we had, and maybe not no longer here, is that developers
Yeah.
that care about the game.
Yeah. I mean, that's just the game industry in general nowadays, I guess. At least that's what podcasts are telling me and stuff. Yeah, really interesting. Since you mentioned BlizzCon real quick, John the Translator also brought it up here in this interview where prior to WCS, there actually wasn't, in StarCraft anyway, there wasn't any kind of big circuit, and in esports in general, there also wasn't
Mhm.
any sort of idea of having a circuit where you have these regional and smaller tournaments that all lead up to a big thing prior to the international that Valve did. And especially ones that's like really supported by the publisher of the game itself, right? He was talking about that. Like, he speculated anyway that Blizzard and then I imagine Riot as well. And I'm trying to think of other companies. I was like, oh yeah, CS:GO. Who's the company that did that? I was like, oh wait, that's Valve that does that. But although the esports side of CS:GO is handled pretty much entirely by ESL nowadays, if I remember correctly. But yeah, that's just, it kind of made me go back and think like, wait a minute, I'm not sure that's true. But then I actually looked at like the 2011 tournaments, the 2010 tournaments, and stuff like that. I was like, oh yeah, these were all like very disparate sort of things. Like you obviously you had GSL, you had MLG, you had a lot of these
Mhm.
other tournaments going on, but they weren't building to something, right? They weren't building to like a big world championship until 2012, or yeah, until 2012 when Blizzard kind of looked at the international that Valve was doing and was like, we should do that. Let's have a WCS. And obviously 2012's WCS was not quite the same format as the future WCS circuits, but yeah, that was an interesting point that I thought he brought up about how nowadays it feels like esports is a little bit more, or rather, companies are trying to make things a bit more centralized. But back then, no, it was Wild West back then. You just, if you wanted to have a tournament, you just paid a license fee and you held a tournament, and that was it. And there was nothing after that except for the next tournament.
Yeah, I do hope that that's something that the main documentary goes into, is like the beginnings and the varying iterations of the WCS system, which did
Hmm.
change quite a lot over the years, where it was refined and became what it was towards the end, which I would say was a good product by the end of it. But again, took a long time to
Yeah,
get there. Took a long time
took a
to
long
really
time to
kind of like.
get there, and then when it really, when people really started getting used to it, then it got
Mhm,
outsourced to ESL, and then after a while, ESL like got outsourced to the EWC.
mhm.
Potentially, we'll see what happens this year. But even
Yeah,
then,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, so I'm curious as to how the documentary is going to approach that, if at all. Like again, like the WCS system was, kind of coming into SC2 and into the later expansions. So maybe they just don't talk about it. I don't know. Maybe it's too recent for that. I don't know. We'll see.
yeah. Again, one of those sort of
Um,
things that we kind of take for granted nowadays. That
mhm.
looking back, it's like it's absolutely wild how it took so long for companies to figure out. Yeah, we should probably have things. We should probably centralize things a little bit.
Mhm. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see. Regardless, do check out the John the Translator interview. Again, one of the shorter interviews out there, or as you mentioned, like it's not a two-parter, right? There's just one part, one interview, so you can get all of your John the Translator uh, news in one place. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. From there, we do have. Oh, right. So that related to GLHF, and I remember
Yep.
we were supposed to bring this up last time, but I believe we did miss out on it.
Yeah,
If
we
you're
forgot
out there,
because
if
we
you
already talked about Chobra for like 2 hours. So
true, true. If you're out there, and if you are somewhat familiar with using DaVinci Resolve, specifically, editing and editing VODs and,
yep.
and working on
Well,
editing with editing software as well, then do consider reaching out because Zomagub is looking for editors, looking for paid work as well, willing to pay, I should say, editors, just because there's a lot of interviews and it looks like it's a lot to kind of get
a
through.
lot of interviews, a lot of raw footage as well.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, there's definitely a lot to go through. I expect a couple more two-parters down the line as well. So, yeah,
Mhm.
understandably, this is, as she puts it, kind of overwhelming if you're trying to get these out on a weekly basis. So, yeah, as the
Mhm.
tweet says, DaVinci Resolve experience, especially if you are used to cutting up timelines, creating markers for specifically for questions, but basically chapter markers and stuff like that, and also fixing subtitles. If you have any experience with that, go give her a DM and yeah, see if you will be willing to do any of this again, paid work.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So do consider reaching out if you're experienced. From there, that leads us into another StarCraft Evolution PTR balance update. I'm a little bit shocked because I think it was like maybe 2 weeks ago that we just had one of these.
Yeah, this is
uh,
fast.
Yeah, it was 2 weeks ago that we just had a patch, and it shows. I mean, maybe we're just used to getting the one annual year they patch in SE2. But yeah, shout out to the Evo guys who are definitely a lot more active when it comes to reacting to tournaments, reacting to balance, and trying to patch on a little bit more of a frequent basis.
Yeah, and it's not that big of a patch. It's mostly a call it. Not no big reworks with this one,
Mm,
but definitely a lot of balance changes. A lot of numbers did get
mhm,
adjusted. So yeah, I guess we'll go through
mhm.
them.
Oh yeah, yeah. As you mentioned, right, it was in the previous patch where they had introduced right like the missing
Missed
mechanic, right, where
shots, yeah.
you. Yes, exactly. Which is like a big shakeup, and they also introduced like a bunch of new models for buildings and stuff like that. As you mentioned here, it's more like tweaking with the numbers of a lot of the balance.
Yeah, and specifically for the brute war races.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. So as a heads up, this is a PTR patch note, so this is not going live yet. This is for the current PTR version of the game, which is definitely still in flux. These are not set in stone. These are being adjusted, I'm sure, over time. Coming into the first set of changes, we have Terran changes coming into play. I appreciate that they even have like an entire explanation as well
Hmm.
alongside some of these changes. For SE2, we usually get like an overarching like idea as to what their goals are for a patch and what they're trying to achieve with it. Here, I guess
And then
similarly
the
as
yeah,
well. Mhm,
yeah, yeah, they go a bit more in depth, I think here.
mhm. For sure, for sure. They're talking about how they reduced the engineering build time here. Sorry, they increased the build time by 10 seconds. And it does kind of make sense here as to why they would. I mean, they talk about how apparently they previously needed it to get into to actually
Early
allow
game
Terran
defense.
players to. Yeah, for early game Stargate opener defense, but it sounds like Terran players have been able to achieve that defense without the need of early turrets. So if that's the case, then we no longer need that eBay to be building as quickly.
Yeah, so it's gonna be a little bit closer to the build time of eBay's in StarCraft 2 Terran, and obviously you are still allowed to lift this. So yeah,
Mm,
apparently a lot of Terran players and Brute War Terran players have figured out ways to utilize the eBay to scout and then build other units reactively, as opposed to just having to rush them out and get missile turrets on the way. Speaking of building other units reactively, in kind of a similar vein to this, the barracks build. Something in my throat today.
uh-huh.
Ah, the barracks build time and the Stimpack research time has been increased ever so slightly to to kind of fit in this align with this goal.
Yeah, and this I can actually speak on a little bit because we've been casting a lot of ZVT. Specifically, there is a build with Brood War Terran against SE2 Zerg. You should be familiar with this. It's similar to a SE2 2-1-1, where a 2-1-1 timing is a stim timing, right? Stim timing, 16 Marines with medevacs, right?
Hmm.
In Brood War, it hits a lot faster. The reason
Yep.
for this, you don't need starports. You don't need
Yeah.
starports. You don't need
Get
the
medics
factory either because you make your medics from Raxes. All you need is the academy. So it hits real hard, real fast, real quick. And we actually have seen a lot of SC2 Zerg players like Shin, players like 3 Point, struggle to defend against that sort of thing.
Yeah, it requires a lot of preemptive setup, and it ends up a lot of time. It ends up with the Zerg player either scouting perfectly early on and getting that perfect setup,
Mhm,
or they are a little bit late to scout and they just kind of fall apart because
mhm,
there's a very small window to be able to react at that point.
mhm. Yeah. I mean, what I will say is the build is really cool though. It's like like
Yeah,
as an SC2 player, it's really cool to see.
I want that
They
build
basically they three racks.
for
They
my
three
ladder
racks
games.
and they rush into the academy. They actually when you make the academy, you can make medics. You can also make firebats, and you make like
Hmm.
1 or 2 firebats as well, which annihilate lings. Medics as well are really robust, and they do a great job
Also
tanking.
very
Like
fast.
it's a
You can micro
mhm.
them a lot easier. You can pull them back if they get a little too far forward or if they're a bit too exposed.
100%, 100%. So it's a really cool build, really deadly, clearly, and it looks like the developers of the mod are like, you know what? Maybe it's a little bit too good. Let's wind it
Yeah,
back a little bit. Let's calm things down. And I would imagine that the next change to the medic is also related as well. Where the medic has also its
yeah.
HP has
And
been decreased a little bit.
I mean, they say it right here in kind of notes. With
Mhm,
65 HP, medics are able to survive a bile to the face, and then they
mhm.
can just get healed up by another medic that's nearby. So, yeah, changing it down to 60 means that corrosive biles will now one-shot the medic, and
Mhm.
yeah, this will force Terran players to ideally micro a little bit more and actually control their army like they're supposed to.
Yeah, crazy. They're asking players to control. That's wild. That's like so overall, I would say positive changes here, at least so far, to the bio side of things. That leads us into the mech side of things here. It looks like we have decreased tank mode attack period from 2.2 to
Yeah,
2.06.
an interesting choice here for the Brute War tank. Obviously, as they were saying, the Brute War Siege tank, even though they sound a lot more
They
impactful
do. They do.
Than the SC2 Siege tank, they are actually a little bit weaker. They have a little bit less AOE, and obviously they,
Mhm,
uh, I think, do around the same amount of damage. But obviously, because of that lack of AOE, it's not quite as effective. This is
mhm,
an interesting choice that they've made here, where rather than increase the damage or increase the radius of the attack, they're actually increasing the speed of the attack, so they'll
mhm.
be able to attack quicker and more often. Which I say it's interesting, just because when I think of the Brute War Siege tank, I think of a very slow moving, kind of a slow attacking but strong
Mhm,
projectile being fired. So
mhm.
yeah, we'll see how this changes things.
Yeah. I think I want to say this is a positive change when it comes to bioplay. We'll see how it affects mech.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
what I'm referring to is because mech is a little bit different because you have a lot of vultures, right? And vultures,
mhm.
they almost kind of make up for the tank with their spider mines. Like there's a lot of splash
Oh,
damage and a lot of
absolutely.
potential. Yeah, with spider mines. So like for the mech side of things, like they're fine, but you don't really have as heavy of a vulture count when you're playing bio. So I do agree with this where I do feel like Bio is, I feel like, considered a little bit weaker in Brood War compared to Mech.
Yep,
Like Mech is really robust
that's
and really
true.
well rounded. So I think this is a good way
I
to help buff Bio specifically.
yeah, I believe Bio is considered more niche in Brute War, funnily
Yeah,
enough. But it's
yeah,
the opposite is true in SC2. Yeah,
for
we'll
sure,
we'll
for
see how
sure.
this changes things. My big concern is the Brute War Siege tank becoming a little bit too similar to the SC2 Siege tank.
Hmm
Because in my mind, they look different, they sound different, they ought to
hmm
also function different. But
True.
yeah, we'll see if this will still allow the Brute War Siege tank and the SC2 Siege tank to maintain their differences.
hmm hmm Yeah. I think that's a really important thing to note is that a lot of these units they're named the same, but they are very different, right? So whenever we cast them, whenever we see them in StarCraft Evolution, uh, Brutal Terran and SC2 Terran and vice versa with all the other races are very different from each other, and I think it's really important that we keep that uniqueness, right? And we keep that distinct identity as well. So I think it is important that you bring that up, and hopefully, this isn't a trend of things to come, and I'm sure it isn't, but it's definitely something to keep in mind.
Yeah. Again, we'll test it out, and we'll see players test it out as well. I'm sure, and they'll be able to provide feedback there.
Mm-hmm. Next up is a change to the Goliath, and previously the Goliath was nerfed in the previous patch. The reason for this is Spirit.
Yep.
Spirit is an animal, and I think you remember casting this during the StarCraft Evolution 4 Championship, is that at a certain point in Spirit he was just going mass
Mono
Goliath
battle,
against...
essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just great. It
Against
shoots up and
Protoss,
down.
against Zerg, against
Yep.
Terran, against everyone. And so, yeah, this makes a lot of sense reading the notes here. In spite of the repeated adjustments to anti-ground, the Goliath remains way too versatile and way too strong as a general unit. And they want the Goliath to, similarly in Brute War, just be specifically a specialist for anti-air with a ground attack, with a ground attack, but not a ground attack that you want to be relying on. So I'm in favor of this nerf, definitely. It sounds similar to a Thor in a way, but I mean the Goliath, it's a Thor of Brute War, so I'm all right with the Goliath being similar to the Thor.
For sure. I mean, as you're mentioning, it's one of those things where it is really cool to see mass Goliath. It's really fun. At the same time,
That's actually
probably isn't the best thing balance wise.
That's
And
actually
you
my
probably want
strategy.
to.
That's actually my strategy in co-op whenever I play Swan.
There you
Is it does make mass Goliaths.
There you go. But yeah, for competitive play, it's probably better if there was a little bit more diversity, or at least trying to force diversity out of a mech-based army. So, as you said, it's probably a good
absolutely.
thing.
As we all know, the only unit that Terran is allowed to have that's good against everything is the Marine.
True.
In fact, the only unit in the game that's allowed to be good against everything is the Marine.
Yeah, and right now that's not the case. Right now it's like man with gun is pretty good. But what about machine that shoots up and down with gun? Is
what about
crazy.
robot with gun?
Exactly.
The robot, we're getting taken over by the robots.
We are. We
the
can't
AI
let it
takeover.
Oh no. So shout out to the people behind the SC Evo mod, and they've taken their steps to fight back against the machine, and with that they're putting the Goliath into place.
Is there a guy in the Goliath, or is the Goliath like a drone?
There's a guy in the Goliath.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the Goliaths have pilots actually.
Yeah. It's
that makes it better slightly.
For sure. If I remember the Goliath, go on.
They're compensating for something that clearly they don't have that the Marine has. All the Marine needs is a suit and a gun.
Exactly. True. That leads us into the BC. Oh, there you go. True. This is into the BC. The final change here for Terran is decreased build time on the battlecruiser from 90 seconds to 80 seconds. The BC was also adjusted in the previous patch as well. Specifically, there was actually, if you remember, it was almost like a rework of the BC in the last patch where they made it more tanky, they made it more robust, they made it do more damage. They busted in almost every single way, like HP, armor, damage output.
And
just
I
because
and I was gonna say, and I remember the rationale behind that was because specifically the battlecruiser is not a mobile unit at all, especially compared to the StarCraft 2 BC that can teleport everywhere. There was basically no reason for, if you were playing Brute War Terran, to build the BC. Now they're trying to encourage more of it, not just by buffing the BC, but also apparently by making it easier to transition into BCs by the looks of things.
100%. This is something that's like, I mean, in general for Brood War races, Terran, Protoss, and Zerg, they are all less mobile. Straight up, they're just less mobile than the SC2 counterpart, and it's easier to catch a player out of position. So increasing the strength of these units to compensate for that does make a lot of sense, as you mentioned. And I think it's a good thing that they're not compensating by increasing mobility, because then it becomes too much like SC2. Instead, just making them more robust, you hit harder, have more HP, being produced faster here as well is all, I would say, probably a good thing here for the BC.
has better attack sounds. That's
Yeah.
morale is
Yeah.
important, you know.
True. 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 Not wrong. Not wrong.
It's a yeah. This is not entirely related, but I think somebody recently was talking about like, oh yeah, RTS games that have morale mechanics, and so they were like wondering how that would work in StarCraft or Warcraft.
Oh my god, it would be awful in StarCraft just
Awful, terrible,
because,
yeah.
yeah, because this
Baneling
everyone's
rocks
dying.
up. One Baneling rocks up, kills a group of zealots. Every other Protoss unit's running away, which
Yeah,
actually, if you think about it, could help you with splits.
I guess kind of, but then you'd be running away. I
But
mean,
then you'd be running, yeah. You don't want that. You don't want to. Yeah, that's
true.
something I think that design philosophy-wise in StarCraft and Warcraft, I guess mostly just StarCraft now because Warcraft RTS isn't a thing anymore. Is they don't want to take control away from the players, right? Compared to AOE and Total War, where they want that to be something that the player factors in.
Yeah, yeah. I can definitely see that being a little more effective, like in a single player game as well. Like I
Yep.
think that'd probably be like a fun mechanic, like in Dawn of War or something, having morale be a thing. But for competitive like RTS, less so. I
Yeah.
don't. It
You.
sounds, yeah.
Yeah. That's a fun mechanic if you're into like really planning ahead, and like you were saying in single player games, or when you have a single player campaign where you can pretty much reliably guess what's going to happen. Yeah, that could be something really fun. But in a multiplayer setting where it really comes down to how well you're able to control the scenario versus your opponent, yeah, that's not something that you want. You don't want to be taking that away from you don't want to be taking that ability away from the player.
Mm, for sure, for sure. But that does wrap up our Terran changes. We now step into the Zerg changes coming up next. The first change here is to the Sunken Coney, increasing the build time from 18 seconds to 21. When it comes to casting and viewing a lot of Brood War Zerg, I will say a big interesting difference about Brood War Zerg because there are no queens. Very early on, whenever
Yep.
there's an early rush, whenever there's a cannon rush or a cheese going on, Sunken Colonies are thrown down instantly to respond, to react, to defend. You see very often throwing down sunken colonies and morphing them into, sorry, I should say creep colonies and morphing them into sunken colonies is really often
Yep.
a response
And
to that sort of thing. And it looks like they're trying to pull back the power on that a little bit. I think right now it's maybe a little bit too fast, and they want to try to force you to scout and maybe see things a little bit further ahead instead
yeah,
of being able to react
yeah,
in
I
such a
think
way.
last week we casted Warcraft 3 Evo, and
Hmm.
we saw Salsa playing Brute War Zerg a couple of times. After a while, he just preemptively didn't stop scouting and just threw down sunken
Yeah,
colonies
yeah.
preemptively every single time. It's like, yeah, I guess you might as well at that point. Obviously different different game mode, different mechanics, and different balance, but it's the same general idea where I think people who are playing either Evo games nowadays and they are playing more on the Brute War Zerg side have figured out, with how the maps work and with the fact that we have StarCraft 2 maps in the pool as well, we might as well just preemptively turtle.
Mhm. For sure, for sure. For this change, though, it does sound like, because I'm reading into their thoughts behind why it is they're changing it, I would have assumed it was because it was maybe a little bit too easy to react with sunken colonies and to build them and to defend. Apparently, something that I haven't seen this, but apparently it has been quite a prevalent strategy, is sunken colony rushes, which would sound like a problem here. And it looks like maybe there's a strategy where you
Ah,
pull the boys. It's like
yeah.
a ZVZ version of cannon rushing, and
It,
maybe that's been a little bit too powerful, so they want to significantly weaken that if they can.
I would just want to echo what you were saying. I have never seen it once
Yeah.
ever happen in any of the games that I've watched or casted, but yeah, I
Uh-huh.
think I don't think they've implemented the ladder yet. I know they've talked
Mhm,
about having plans to have a ladder mode for SE Evo, but yeah, I
mhm.
guess in a lot of custom games, that's something that people are pulling off that the people who are facing that don't find too fun. So yeah,
Uh-huh. I thought you were gonna say, I haven't seen that, or I haven't seen that yet, but now I want to. You're like, now, like,
well, I
now.
if you asked me last week, I would have wanted to, but I actually laddered
Uh-huh.
a little bit a couple days ago, and I faced I think 3 different people 5 times who all spine crawler rushed me, and
Oh
It's
my
not fun.
god.
I figured out how to defend towards the end there, but still wasn't very fun to play against.
Mhm.
I just wanted to build my aliens. I just wanted to roast some drones, man. That's all I want to do. But now you're making me build a bunker. Now you're making me build marines, and then I didn't want to I didn't want to turn this into an impromptu 2-on-1. Look what you made me do.
True, true. It's their fault. 100%, 100%.
Yeah.
So yeah, with that, looks like they have increased the build time. Scrolling down, the Defiler now has a consumability that requires research first. So it looks like they are going to be delaying some of the power of the Defiler, which I understand. We speak all the time about how powerful spellcasters are in Brood War, so it looks like this is a way to hinder the Defiler a little bit here by delaying kind of how, when it does come online.
Yeah, and as they were mentioning as well, this is something that what is a thing in Brute War. You do have to research the ability apparently, but in SC Evo they were a little bit worried that that would make Defilers a little bit too weak. That would make Brute War Zerg a little bit too weak, and that would make really mess with the balance. So they removed that requirement initially, but after observing a bunch of games and after making a couple of other balance changes, they realized that we can probably add this back in.
Mhm. Yeah, especially because of the Defiler, because of the consumability, unlike an Infestor, for example, which you have to wait for it to build up energy, Defiler comes out, bam, eat a couple of
Yeah.
lings, and you're at full energy, and you can just send it.
It's
Like,
it's even more egregious than whatchamacallit, the Vipers in StarCraft 2,
Mhm.
where in that you have to have a building that still takes a little bit of time to suck up that energy,
Mhm.
whereas Defilers consume is instant. You just
Yeah.
bring them around a couple of lings and you just eat them up, and at that stage of the game you want to be transitioning away from lings anyway, so it's like
Mhm.
you're really not losing anything by just consuming them.
Mhm. For sure, for sure. So yeah, it does make sense that they're going to be weakening the Defiler a little bit here. Definitely, we can
It
understand the rationale for that, for sure.
You also just kind of made me realize something, how interesting it is. You were mentioning how spellcasters in Brute War are super, super powerful. In SC2 Evo, they're also super, super powerful. It's an interesting evolution that we've had, right? In Brute War, you have the spellcasters who were very powerful, and then you go to Warcraft 3, where you also have really powerful spellcasters, but you only have 4 in total
Uh-huh.
in the hero units. And in SC2, it's like the spellcasters are more support units, as
Yeah,
opposed to
yeah.
what you want.
Yeah, exactly. I think we spoke about this last time about how in Brood War, because the spells are so impactful, it's always so exciting whenever they happen. I actually
Mhm.
don't think we spoke about that, but I did speak about it during our most recent SEL cast. About how, like, man, whenever there's a plague, whenever there's a dark swarm, whenever there's a big Brood War
Yeah.
storm, whenever there's a lockdown, or
Yeah.
stasis, like with the ghosts or with the arbiters, like, man, it is a hype moment whenever that stuff happens.
You
In
say
SC2
hype
a little bit
moment.
less so. Uh
I played the Zerg campaign, and I've
huh.
been put in stasis quite a number of times by arbiters. It's
Uh
more like a salt moment.
huh. It's a smudge moment. Oh no. Maybe not when it's happening to you, but like casting, observing,
When you're
watching it.
watching it as a third party, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. When you're watching these pro players duke it out, like it's always like a really big, impactful moment, and it can very. I mean, I was gonna say it can swing a fight in your favor. It can swing a fight, but it doesn't really swing the game too heavily, just because you can reproduce a little faster. The units are cheaper. Like Brood Wars. I mean, it's a different game, right? It's a different game.
Yeah.
For SC2, it's less so the case, just because yeah, it just has a different tempo to it, and not saying it's like a better thing or a good thing or a bad thing, but it's just very different. It's interesting to perceive that difference between Brood War and SC2.
Yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
When Brute Warrior, yeah. I don't want to say this happens all the time, but it's definitely a strategy to kind of
Mhm.
set up the game and set up the map to get that one really good spell, pull that one really good spell off. That's something that does also happen in SC2 a couple times, but those are like, people call them meme builds in SC2, whereas in Brute War, it happens a bit more regularly and it's more legit of a strategy.
Mhm. For sure, for sure. That leads us into the Devour. The Devour attack period has been reduced from 6.25 to 5.8. This is an interesting one. I'll be honest. The only the only time I've seen Devourers has been in ZVZ, so I haven't been able to see too much Devourer play in StarCraft Evolution. But the rationale was again just to similarly to actually some of these other changes to bring it more in line with Brood War.
Yeah, there's literally just one sentence in the
Yeah.
notes here, which is like, yeah, balance-wise, we feel like it's an appropriate time to bring it more in line with their Brood War counterpart. Nobody builds them anyway, so yeah.
True. And the final change, one Protoss change, just the one, is to the carrier, where the build time has been decreased from 90 seconds to 80 seconds.
Yes, and it's a similar rationale to the battle cruiser, where they are mentioning that they really like the carrier. They do think that it's what late game Protoss should have, and overall they think that the toolkit for the carrier is fine, but it's just kind of difficult to transition to carriers as the Brute War Protoss player. So yeah, they're hoping that with this decreased build time, they can encourage more carrier play.
For sure. So overall, just not too large of a patch, but a patch nonetheless. Again, we see it's mainly kind of like targeting Terran. There's a lot of Terran changes, whether it's to some of the mech units, whether it's to some of the bio units as well. Obviously, there's the big change to the Defiler, which definitely can very much so be impactful. But yeah, definitely some interesting changes here. And actually, at the very top of the patch notes, it does talk about how the PTR is going to be tested on a show match this Saturday. We'll get there. We'll get to that point, but there's going to be a show match on Saturday that we are going to be casting featuring this.
Indeed. Trying to do the math. Yeah, this Saturday at 9 p.m. KST is has been announced.
Yeah, exactly. I believe Home 1 and 3 points are going to get involved, so they're going to be there.
Of course,
yeah. I don't know how much Homeowner is going to actually make use of these changes. We'll see. He is an animal. But I'll be excited to see how he does make use of some of these changes. Regardless,
I would imagine that the format of the show match will be a little bit different, right? Where if it's going to be Homeowner versus 3 point, they're going to want more Brute War from Homeowner. So they probably, as opposed to having it be loser's pick, I imagine that they will probably beforehand, decide which maps they're going to be playing on, and which maps are going to be Brute War Terran, and which maps are going to be Brute War Zerg. Yeah, again, just try to encourage more. Because this is a more Terran-focused patch, I imagine they're going to want to encourage more Brute War Terran in this, and I don't think they're gonna allow Hanmono to play too much. It's SE2 in this case.
Yeah. 100%. I agree. Like, I don't know the details as to the show match, but I would hope that that's the case, right? I would hope that they do kind of force a little bit more Brood War Terran just to showcase this, just to see if any more tweaks need to be made, if we are satisfied with the changes to the units as well. So, yeah, I do agree. Hope that is the case, and do look forward to that show match over the weekend.
Yeah. It's going to be fun.
There you go. There you go. It is going to be on Saturday. It is going to be the 15th. Otherwise, we do head on over here to our tournaments. First things first, we have our own amateur event. We have the Master Swan Open number 89. This is our monthly bronze to 4.7k MMR event.
Indeed. And I was gonna, it was great being a part of this. I definitely wasn't asleep at the time. Yeah, no, overall a great tournament. Overall a great tournament. I managed to wake up by the time the semifinals were underway. The lower semifinals were underway, and yeah, very, very close games between towards the end there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. It can always be really, talking a little bit about the format itself, it can always be a little bit tricky when it comes to hosting events like this and when it comes to the quality of the play. The reason for this, as you can imagine, it's MMR restricted, but very often we get like Diamond players, Platinum players, maybe some like M3 players, but sometimes there's like one player that stands above the rest that's maybe like 4.6k MMR, for example, and maybe there's like a bit of a gap between, the MMR ranges. But here we got very fortunate and we actually had our top four. Like, we had a lot of ace matches even before that. Like, there was a lot of ace matches, a lot of really close series here.
Yeah, quite a lot of variety as well. We ended up with a ZVP finals, but beforehand, we had a ZVZ, we had a TVP, a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, and even in the quarterfinals, mate, the favorite player, Pappy, Captain Fish, he went to the ace match against
Yeah,
the winner of the tournament. Yeah.
exactly. He had to end up giving his high command powers to another Terran player in here, but in the end, they did end up falling to Protoss. Many such
Mhm.
cases.
For sure, for sure. But just emphasizing just how close the skill was between a lot of these players and how close the matches were, which is what we always do want to see. So, congratulations to the Undertaker for becoming this month's champion. Shout out to Stray for becoming the runner-up. This was Stray's first time competing, and a shout out to the other top players as well, like Chance, Awok, Captain
Yeah,
Fish, Beast, Dizzy Dwarf, and Zigger.
yeah. Shout out to Undertaker once again for also winning the raffle.
True. Oh my god. Hashtag rigged in the chat. Maybe. Maybe. We all know that that if Yaku, if he had signed up, he would have won it.
Exactly. I would have won the whole raffle.
Exactly. True, true.
Yeah.
Next time. But yeah, congratulations to Undertaker. This is also, I believe, our first our first MSO of the year. Sorry, my apologies. I should have started
Yeah,
with that actually. Yeah, our first
Yeah,
Amazon
we took a
Open.
break for January, didn't we?
Yes. January was just really busy with Masters Coliseum, with Little League Cup. So the return of MSO, and again, we should be hosting one of these every single month. If you're interested, if you want to compete, then do check out our next MSO, number 90, which is going to be taking place, of course, coming into March. So do check it out. And this is also our first MSO that did feature a unique map pool here, featuring some TLMC maps with Star Child and Talisman and Arrowhole.
Yeah, we decided not to go for the ladder map pool, just to bring things more in line with our other tournaments, which we
Mhm.
switched up the map pool to bring in line with other tournaments as well that were happening. I think most
Mhm.
most online cups nowadays aren't using the official ladder map pool just because it's, I don't want to say it's a mess, but it's a little bit weird to have a bunch of.
Uh-huh.
It's a little bit of a eclectic mix, too eclectic of a mix in the current ladder map pool.
Yeah, and we actually spoke with some of the other organizers, and we're really excited about the new TLMC, right? Like
Yep.
TLMC is on the horizon, and as soon as we get our finalists for
Yeah.
TLMC, we are more than happy to adjust the map pool and start incorporating some of those newer TLMC maps
Yeah.
as well, just to feature them.
The judging is already underway,
Mhm.
so stay tuned for the announcement eventually.
Exactly. We'll get there. Once they're announced, we'll let you know. TLMC.
Yeah.
As that leads us into our next event here. That leads us into the Passioncraft Emerging Stars number 3. This has very quickly become a regular event, featuring players that are 5.5k MMR and below. Basically, we do see a lot of semi-pros, a lot of GMs do take part in this. And once again, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 2 months in a row. Yep, 2 events in a row. We do have Inexorable winning.
Yeah. Starting to become obviously, right? He had the Terran High Command behind him.
True. So shout out to Inexorable. I believe he was actually a reference. The second edition of this tournament was actually referenced when Alien Esports signed Inexorable. So clearly, they're paying attention to these tournaments. They're paying attention to the up and coming players, and yeah, it's thanks to these events that he was able to get picked up.
Yeah, we don't have scouting events anymore, or we don't have tryout tournaments anymore. So yeah, it's online events like this that people are using, and if you're also an aspiring team owner, should be using to kind of scout out for free agents.
Yeah, exactly. To
Hey,
kind of gauge who is on the rise, who is looking in form, who is improving, and yeah, who can come out on top in these events.
yeah. I'll also say that this time, very EU heavy. Just
Oh yeah.
looking at the participation, Inexorable, I think, is the only player from the Americas this week.
Yeah, unfortunately, he was on his own in this event, but congratulations nonetheless for winning it in the end. That leads us into a bit of a different event here. That leads us into the Circle Derping Evolution number 1. And this was a very quirky event. This was an FFA, but not
Okay,
your
yeah.
usual FFA. This was an FFA featuring a unique mod, a quote-unquote Beast of the Hill mod. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm looking through the rules here, and seems like there's also a little bit of capture control points
Hmm.
active in this, so it's not just a regular FFA. A little bit of
Hmm.
a little bit of TF2 involved here.
Yeah, honestly, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Basically, how the map works. First things first. Some unique maps were made for some unique FFA maps were made for this mod. I don't know if you remember playing much FFA Yaku back in the day. But
I
a lot of the
remember,
free.
I remember my infamous
Yeah, true.
backdoor alliance with Crank in that in that FFA we played one time.
Well, if you remember the map, traditionally in a lot of these like quote unquote like Blizzard sanctions like FFA maps in the base game, they don't really have a lot of bases for you to expand to. They
Yeah.
had like maybe let you get a natural, maybe a third base at most, and then that's kind of it. Like that's all you have available to you. Here with these custom maps that were made for free-for-all specifically, you get 8 players, and every player has at least 4 bases available to them. Like at least 4. I think mostly actually 5.
32
Like you get
bases
5.
total. Oh,
Yeah,
wait,
yeah. So you
4.
get 5.
Wait, 5. 4. Wait.
Huh?
Wait.
40? Yeah.
No, it's 8 times 5, not 4 times 5. So
Uh-huh.
40 bases.
Yeah, thank you.
I was like, why 20 bases? Wait, that doesn't sound correct. Like,
But yeah,
it's
you'd
a
have
lower
basically,
number
as you
than
were saying,
32.
like 40 expansions in total on the map. So because of that, and they're also relatively split off from each other, so you're able to, as a player, freely get a proper economy and
It,
be able to max out multiple times and be able to sustain yourself,
at,
as opposed to in your traditional FFA map or standard
at that
FFA
point,
map.
it becomes more like Civ.
Mhm. Or I guess it kind of becomes like am I thinking of big game hunters where you have like 1 or 2 bases, but
Big
there's like almost infinite minerals available to you, so like
Yes,
you can
that's
still
what
like
Big Game
sustain
Hunters
yourself.
is the one where it's like it's an 8-player map, but there are only like 2 bases per player. But the base
Mhm.
that you start on, your what's it called? Your main base
Mhm.
has like a bajillion minerals, so you never run out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's a little bit similar. I say a little bit, but
It
I say a
sounds like
little
the
bit just
exact
because.
opposite.
Yeah, yeah, I say a little bit similar in the sense that you have an economy, but because there are more bases, you can mine more minerals at once, right? So you actually
Right.
can sustain yourself like a regular 1v1. So first things first, all these maps, all of them were unique. There were 5 unique maps for each kind of round, essentially. You get like 5 bases each. But what's fun about it and what's really exciting is that every couple of minutes, initially 5 and then like 3 and then 2 from then on forward, a point becomes active, and there's a countdown timer, and the last standing player on that point wins the round. They score a point basically. So you'd get these
Lurkers
situations
be
where like the
insane
timers,
there.
where the counters timing down is like 20 seconds left, and suddenly like everyone moves out. They're all like crowding around the point, and then bam, like they all just it's just a mosh pit, just a big
It
mosh pit. Everyone dives in, everyone jumps on the point, and it's just chaos. And
yeah,
a lot of players are actually struggling with their frames, as frames did
I
drop for a lot of the players.
I I was comparing it to TF2. That sounds a lot more like Mario Party. The last player standing there, and it's like, yeah, I can
Hmm.
just imagine like planting a lurker there preemptively, or planting a bunch of widow mines there
Hmm. Yep.
preemptively is because you know what the point's going to be, right?
I mean,
Hmm.
What the point's going to be, right?
I
It's like
just w-
Hmm.
it's just when it goes active is when
Yes.
it's random. Yeah.
I just want to say that Geralt tried to plant his entire base there, and that didn't help him.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
because everybody's gonna just gang up on you at that point. You made it too
Exactly.
obvious, Gerald. Like, come on.
I was gonna touch on what you just said, is that Geralt, he was playing, I think, Brood War Terran at the time, and he had set up like a massive minefield with his vultures all around the point, and he
Well,
was like
that's because
planted in the middle, and he got surrounded by every other player, and he just died. It was, and right after that, he
well,
like spam, he was like, question mark, what just happened? Like he just lost everything.
well, widow mines, they don't stay alive after they're expended. Like, come on, Geralt.
Mhm. But yeah,
Spider
very
mines, I should
often.
say, they don't stay there. Widow mines, on the other hand,
Mhm.
that's what you want. Lurkers, that's what you want. You want to have
Very
burrowed or
often.
cloaked units there. DTs, that's what you want.
very often a lot of the success that players had were usually like waiting a little bit, right? So where like the countdown timer
Coming
would
in
go
for
down to
scraps. Yeah.
0, you'd have like 3 or 4 players fighting, and then you have like 2 or 3 other players waiting a little bit for the fighting to die down, and then they go in, right? And then they
Yeah.
so there's like a second wave of player fighting basically as the other players were lying in
Exactly.
wait. Um,
The Roose Bolton method.
yeah, the vultures.
Exactly. Oh,
But yeah.
trying to remember my Game of Thrones memory.
Oh no.
Who swooped in?
Um,
Who swooped in at the end after everyone was tired?
oh no. I think I know what you're talking about.
And I'm not talking about the show.
Okay.
I
But
purged the show memory from my brain.
that's probably a good thing. It's probably a good thing. But yeah, like that was it definitely just added a different dynamic to the games and dynamic to the FFA, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. There was some unique strategies that were actually working really well. That was really fascinating to see. Basically, different units, as you know, have different like priority when it comes to attack. And there was one player, it was Mevin. Mevin had some really cool strategies where he was able to snipe a bunch of points by going
Oh.
mass scout. He went mass scout probe, and what he was doing was, if you know scouts, they have an ability called disruption web. They can disruption web, and they would rush in, and he would just spam disruption web on the point, which means that basically units can't do melee attacks when they're inside it, and the pros they would rush in as well, and in the midst of all that, everyone else would be fighting each other on top of the point. They'd be killing each other, and the pros would survive, and then he would snipe the point.
They would live, and then the scouts would clean up whatever's left left over.
And then he'd get the hell out of there. Like there was strategies like that. There were other strategies that were really cool, which was adepts. There were some really, really well-timed shades where we had mass adept. He would shade in just as the point became active, and the way that it works is because of the shade completing, adepts would actually, when they complete the shade, they would push the other units off of the point. Right, they'd push them off when the shade finishes. Exactly. So there was that. There was Mass Ultra, where we'd had a player going Mass Ultra and also diving on the point and just rolling through everyone and just clearing the area and getting the point as well. Like, yeah, there was just a lot of unique kind of approaches to it. It was a lot of fun.
The cogs are spinning a little bit. I'm trying to think of what effective strategies would be, because from what you're describing, when I think of having a capture point like this, what I'm thinking is you plant stealth units in there that can pick off other people's units one by one, or instantly shred them, like having mass lurkers there or something. But what you're describing, that sounds like it's more effective, is to come in and not necessarily brute force, but just come in and push everyone out. You know, don't be stealthy about it. You still need a little bit of finesse to pull it off, from what it sounds like. But yeah, you don't necessarily want to preemptively set it up.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to be the first one there. 100%. You don't want to be the first one there because you're gonna be the first one dead. Exactly. I think Hyper One, he had a strategy in the final game where he went proxy racks. He went proxy 4 racks around the point. And he was throwing down bunkers and setting up marines, and he got completely annihilated.
Yeah,
because
then it's a 7v1 at that point.
Exactly.
If you set up your camp, that's just telling everybody else what to attack.
100%. And throughout all this as well, because it's an FFA, I mean, you also have not just the capture point, but you have obviously, fighting amongst each other and some alliances, some betrayals as well.
Yeah,
the
just
drama.
like Civ.
Oh no. So it was a lot of fun. It was very refreshing, and I believe Hyper One, he plans on making this event, the Circle Doping Evolution, a monthly event. I think that's the current plan. We'll see how regular it becomes.
How do you sign up?
That's a good question.
Because I have memories of FF8s. I'm gonna get Kuro to sign up with me.
I believe there is a Discord.
Yes.
So join the Discord, and Hyper One will announce whenever the next event is. I should also emphasize as well that this is the StarCraft Evolution version, which is why I mentioned like Scout and Disruption Web. So StarCraft Evolution is a factor into this as well.
So the way it works, from what I gathered, is that yes, be in the Discord for SC Evo, but also I believe you just sign up on challenge, and basically the first 8 people who check in just get in.
But you have to also be in the Discord to be eligible for
Yeah,
that,
I mean,
imagine.
I don't know if you have to be eligible, but like just to know if you actually got in, you probably need to be in Discord.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
For sure.
So that sounds like a plan, Kuro. We're gonna both sign up for this thing, and we're gonna team up, and we're gonna beat everyone else.
Oh
What she
no.
doesn't know. What she doesn't know is that I'm actually lying. I'm gonna get everybody else to kill her first for revenge of the
no.
FFA years ago.
Ah no.
Yeah, we're gonna
also,
be a super team in there.
Don't
PSA
worry,
here
I'll get
is that
my
make sure.
register.
No. PSA is make sure that your PC can handle it, because we did have some forfeits by
Ah.
Bonan. Bonan was mentioning that basically for every big fight, he literally had 1 frame per second. There was just so much going on at
No.
once. So Bonan had to forfeit, and Zardiant also had to forfeit as well. So there were a couple of players that had some lower end PCs that did struggle.
Now that you mention it, I think I actually can't sign up anymore. Now that you mention that, my PC is getting old now, and it wasn't exactly top of the line when I first built it.
So that's something to be wary of when you have 8 players with maxed out armies storing down a bunch of effects in one centralized location. Yeah, like it can cook some PCs.
Yeah, when it comes to my graphics card and my CPU, yeah, we're approaching 7 years at this point.
But yeah, with that, it was a fun event.
SSD though, that's neat. An NVMe SSD though now, so
there you go.
Boots up fast.
But a shout out to Ilias. Ilias did win the event. Patches came second, Mevin came third, and Lelix came fourth. Mevin, if you remember, was the player that was having some really unique strategies with workers, with scouts. Patches was the player that was just brute forcing with mass ultra, just who just rushed into just mass ultra and just brute force it. Ilias was the player that was sniping with like adepts and sniping with some key Protoss units.
I have to wonder now, because obviously I know that Hyper One is a lot more involved when it comes to SC Evo. He's involved in the team. He helps them with balance and making maps as well. And obviously he organizes the SC Evolution League as well, and a lot of other stuff like that. But I have to wonder what something like this would look like using Warcraft Evolution. Like, having those hero units involved. Like, I imagine that would be an even bigger brawl at the control point.
At that point, it's just Heroes of the Storm, right? Like
That's all I want. That's all I want. Like maybe
everyone coming out with their heroes.
It's like maybe delay the when the capture point actually goes live a little bit, so you can get the StarCraft Root War players to get a couple of spellcasters out. You know, it could be interesting.
Yeah, I can already see the Mountain King just jumping in.
Yeah, and they have fucking Kael'thas in there, just fucking blasting everyone. Goddamn fucking fire blast or whatever. And then the Lich coming in, Kel'Thuzad coming in with the Frost Novas.
True. There you go.
But okay, here's the thing. Here's how you balance it. You enable friendly fire, but only for the Warcraft players.
Oh no. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. I'm sure Hyper One, he's more than happy to take into consideration some different versions of the FFA. Whether they're balanced or not, it's yet to be determined. But regardless, it was a fun event, and do look forward to seeing the next one as well. That leads us into the Rebellion versus Honmono StarCraft Evolution show match that did take place. Was a best of 7. And we did cast some of this, and I'll be honest, it was a pretty short best of 7. As you can imagine, we saw a lot of aggression out of Honmono, but I was really surprised to see Rebellion being able to bring him down. Like, he played well.
You were?
I mean, I've seen a lot of Protoss players die to Honmono's all-ins. Like,
that's
I'll be honest.
Well, a lot of lesser Protoss players is what we'll say.
True. Take that, Max Packs.
Yeah. Suck it, classic.
Oh no. But yeah, Honmono, he's hyper aggressive in this matchup. So I mean, he has a reputation, and Rebellion, he was able to weather the storm and to win himself.
I imagine he all-in every game.
Honmono, 100%, yeah. 100%. Even on what I will say, there was one game where he didn't cheese, didn't proxy. That was on the island map game, which was Neo Isles of
Neo
Siren,
Isles, yeah.
which was a treat. Was a treat. Rebellion was able
Well,
to
that's
catch him
because
off
he
guard.
couldn't all in on that
Mhm.
map.
True.
That wasn't by his choice.
Not wrong. Not wrong. But Rebellion had a really nice strategy on that map. He was playing, I believe, SE2. He was playing SE2 Protoss at the time, and he was able to catch Homeowner completely off guard with a massive recall. He was able to recall onto the island of Homeowner and able to overwhelm him. Homeowner, he was not aware, was caught with his pants down. GG.
Yeah.
GG.
Fitting end, I think, to that series. And a fitting
For
end
sure,
to against a player like Mono as well, you know? A little bit of a taste of your own medicine.
100%. So, congratulations to Rebellion for winning that show match here. Shout out to Enki and Yuang for hosting the event as well. Again, a lot of the Spanish community or the Latin American community has been embracing StarCraft Evolution, so it's been great to see them taking the initiative to host their own matches as well.
Yeah. Very cool to see Latin America kind of investing a little bit more in the scene, I would say.
For sure. That leads us into our next event. That leads us into the Hyper One Power Rankings number 4. Again, this is an in-house tournament amongst all the Hyper One players, and we just concluded the group stage. It was a big round-robin group stage, a lot of matches. Fun fact, Hyper One messaged me. He's like, yo, you want some replays? I'm like, nope. Because he had a lot of matches to
I
cast.
do not.
And I was like, mate, our schedule's already full. We had no shot, mate, no shot. But yeah, a lot of matches were held, and I would say some upsets as well.
Yeah, I would say I'm upset personally that my
Oh.
dream finals is no longer going to be possible anymore.
Mhm.
I wanted Baby Swiss versus the Swiss for the grand finals, but yeah, the Swiss, they got taken up by Hyper One. Shout out to Hyper One over there. In that first round of the playoffs, Hyper One still in this tournament, taking out Myeonmu as well in the next round after that, and yeah, it's currently waiting to schedule his series against Nomad over there.
Do you think is this allowed? Is this legal? Like Hyper One, like I'm sure he's like threatening all of his boys, but like, mate, you want to get paid this month? You better bow down and back off. Oh no.
I imagine for Hyper One, it's actually the opposite. It's like, you want to get paid this month? Well, you better be able to beat me.
True.
Myeonmu, the Swiss, we're already drafting your what's it called, form to be released from the team.
Oh no. Hyper One, he's cutting his roster as we speak. So best of luck to Nomad, Ilias, Mitchneck, and Gogo Joey. Again, I just mentioned his name, but it's always great to see Gogo Joey competing here. I think we mentioned last time that he doesn't really play in many events anymore. Every now and then he pops in, but it's a rare sight. So it's great to see Gogo Joey still being active, playing in these tournaments.
Yeah, focused primarily on these Hyper One tournaments, but I think recently we saw him in something else, a little bit of not a show match, but like a fun, like one-off tournament that we saw. So yeah, always nice to see that. Always nice to see him competing. Most likely, I mean, I'm looking at the names that I recognize. I feel like the finals are probably going to be Gogo Joey versus Jackie, but like we were mentioning, a couple of upsets happened already. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something a little bit different here. You know, Mono, definitely a lot of potential over there. Ilias, as he demonstrated recently, also has quite a lot of potential there.
Yeah. I mean, I was gonna say that I expected Homeowner to be the favorite player here to make it through to the grand finals, but as you mentioned, Jackie took down Homeowner in the group stage. Very impressive. I'm very impressed. Like Homeowner, I rate him quite highly here, but 100%, maybe got in touch with Rebellion. I don't know, but yeah, impressive stuff there. So we'll see if Homeowner can be denied that grand finals and if Gogo Joy can be stopped as well. Best of luck to all the other competitors, of course, as they play out their matches.
Yeah,
mate, this power ranking started in November of last year. Jesus.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Feel a little bit better about the FSL and the OSC.
I was about to say it's like Hype One. He saw OSC. He's like, man, you think 3 months is too long to host an event? Hold my beer, man. I'm gonna take 4 months, 5 months. Yeah, I take half a year to wrap up this tournament. Jesus.
Yeah, but then finally we can rank them. We can rank the players, and See who's at the top.
There you go. Then we'll start the next power rankings. Then
Oh yeah.
Oh no. So best of luck to all the players over at Team Hyper 1 as they find out who's the best player for November, December, January, February, and March. All at once. That leads us into a new invitational that was held.
Yes.
The
and
PL Invitational.
Oh, we're going PL first. Okay.
Oh, sorry. To the Fairy Cup. My apologies.
Pick one.
Go for it.
Okay, so we're doing Fairy Cup. Yes, okay, Fairy Cup. We had an invitational show match recently. We're still committing to the mountain graphic here, but this time we actually can critique the graphic that they use because, as you see, we had Shin versus UED Soldier. Shin ended up winning this tournament, but UED Soldier is the one with the crown.
Why didn't they give Shin a crown as well? What's going on here? What's going on? I appreciate the graphic. I appreciate the crown as well.
They're committing to a theme.
What's the theme?
Apparently, it's 80s. Whatchamacallit, Miami Vice, Tron graphics. We're Miami Vicing it up. We're getting some. What happened in Miami Vice? I remember Archer Vice, which parodied that. They were trying to shift. They're trying to shift the drugs that they bought by accident.
They were. That's true. That did happen.
Archer Vice. They got Kenny Loggins in one episode, the best episode of that season.
Just like Fairy Cup.
Exactly. Danger Zone. That's the theme.
There you go.
The theme for Fairy Cup this year, apparently, it's going to be Danger Zone.
Yeah, I mean, they come back here for another best of 7. Shin versus UED Soldier. I appreciate the graphic. This is the first time I've actually seen UED Soldier as well, so we're able to feature him with a nice crown. But this is a show match that really caught me a little bit off guard, not gonna lie. Shout out to UED Soldier, he was able to take a map. This felt like an interesting pairing here, and Shin was coming in as one of the favorites for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I know that UED Soldier, he's not on Little Fairy anymore, but I believe he merked for Little Fairy in one of the Chinese specific team leagues. Was it WTL or anything like that? It was like over shorter one, and yeah, he plays in a lot of the other Chinese regional events, so he is quite involved in the scene. So I'm not too surprised that Little Fairy and Psycho wanted to get UED Soldier in for a show match, but like you said, it feels a little bit imbalanced having him go up against Shin for the first Little Fairy show match, the first Little Fairy Cup show match.
Yeah, for sure. It was a bit of an odd choice, but regardless, congratulations to Shin for winning the show match, and a shout out to UD Soldier for taking a map on Ultra Love as well. You can check out the matches over on Bilibili over on Saber's channel. That then leads us into the PL Invitational. Also, I should mention that the Fairy Cup, we did cover the previous one, number 12, and we don't know how regular it's going to be, but we'll keep an eye on it. We'll see if it's, for the time being, it's like more of an irregular event. I don't think they're set in stone with the dates. Yeah,
just when they can find players who are available and casters who are available. Definitely, like you said, they don't have a fixed schedule. They play around with they work around the schedules of, again, whichever player is available.
For sure.
And And so now that brings us into the PL Invitational, which I am very upset about personally. I feel like this is false advertising. Nothing to do with Poland. It's a Korean-only event.
Yeah. There's it's a bit of an odd one here. Just kind of came out of nowhere. The PL Invitational. I'm not too familiar with the organizer or how it came about. I can see that Inu did cast it in Korean, so I would imagine maybe Inu is working behind the scenes on this. But a pretty big invitational. We had Solar, Gumiho, Byun, Shin, Cure, Zan, Creator, and Classic all taking part.
Yeah, pretty big invitational in terms of the participation, in terms of who participated in this. A lot of top Korean players, but also pretty large of a prize pool for an invitational. I don't want to call it a show match because it's absolutely not. An invitational tournament that was an online tournament like this. $600 prize pool. Cure did end up winning first place. They ended up taking $350 of those dollars. So yeah, pretty big for an online tournament.
100%, and some crazy results as well. I do think that the upper half is maybe a little bit more what we expect. I mean, Byeon
Yeah.
and Shin, Byeon and Shin are very close in skill. They go back and forth very often. This time, Shin was the victor over him. I'm a little bit surprised by Kira versus Zaun. Zaun has been looking very impressive as of late. We've even been recently casting Zaun against Clem, seeing them go to the ace match in best of 5. So for Kira to bring him down was pretty impressive in my eyes.
Yeah, bring him down 2-0 as well. Zaun, you were mentioning, we've been casting him against players like Clem. It really looks like he's starting to figure out PvT, and he is one of the better PvT players out there. But Cure, nowadays he's a bit of a wild card, right? We don't really get to cast him as often just because he's very sporadic when it comes to signing up for online tournaments. But when we do see him, oh yeah, he is quite insane, quite effective. It was really hard to judge him coming into this. It's because we don't really know what his form is looking like, but he absolutely proved himself. He beat Zaun 2-0, and then he beat Creator 3-1, which I don't want to gloss over this either. Creator beat Classic in a PvP in order to make it to those semifinals, but did end up falling to Cure, who has some really cracked TVP nowadays, and then moved on to face Solar in those grand finals. Solar, once again, going down this villain arc.
Not like this. I mean, Solo did well for himself making it to the finals. He took down Shin to do so, and Gumiho as well, so really impressive results. But yeah, Cure, he was on a tear here, and I'd have to just echo what you're saying in the sense that Cure, he's not the most active of players nowadays. We do get to cover him every now and then, but yeah, it's definitely been a little bit difficult to kind of gauge his current skill. But seeing him in this tournament, it definitely bodes well when it comes to Kira's form, and if you're a fan of Kira out there, I mean, now is the time. Did really well for himself. GG.
Yeah, GG. Very nicely done. I imagine. Yeah, I mean, we know that Kira's probably still practicing behind the scenes. It's just we don't really get to see much of. We don't really get to see him show it off too much, right? In tournaments and stuff like that. Obviously, I'm sure he's been communicating a lot with Clem and with Mana as well, his Liquid boys. Clem especially, I'm sure he's like blowing up his DMs every day. It's in the middle of the night over in France. He's like, yo, bro, I gotta figure something out. Like, help me out. And Clem's like, it's 3 a.m. This is when I'm outside partying. We know he's not. We know he's not asleep at 3 a.m.
It's true. It's true. No, that's prime gaming time for Clem, mate. 100%. 100%. So, yeah, regardless, it's been great to see Cure performing well here in this tournament. And we'll see if this becomes a regular event as well. I'm referring to the PL Invitational. We'll see if it's just like a one-off tournament. Maybe like there was a really passionate fan that wanted to host a tournament, or maybe it becomes more of a regular thing.
Yeah, very little information about this, about the organizers as well, at least on Wikipedia. So, yeah, I too am hoping that it's going to become a bit more regular, and yeah, I'm hoping that we figure out more about the organizers themselves and why their rationale over the invitationals, and why they wanted to create more invitational events like this.
Yeah. So we'll see if we get more PL Invitationals. Otherwise, that does lead us into the Super 7.
Yeah, and I will say, hopefully one day involving players from Poland.
True. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't just call your event the PL tournament and not have Poland involved at least in some way.
Exactly. Because what else could it stand for? What else could it be?
Power line?
Nah. Crazy.
Poland all the way down.
It's actually
exactly.
Pro League Invitational. None of these players played in Pro League, except for Classic and Creator and Cure and Solar and Zaun.
Yeah.
Björn didn't play in it,
True. But that does lead us into the Super 7s 29, our next big show match here. Once again, it's going to be a best of 7 here, a TVP bringing together Creator and Björn.
Yeah, it's a perfect theming, I feel, for this show match. The Mountain Kings going off against each other.
True. King of the Mountain here. Creator and Björn, they do face off. And the Creator comes out swinging.
No, I was going to say, they are hiking buddies for anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about.
They are good friends, ex-Prime boys, if you will. And I mean, we were giving praise to Creator earlier for his win against Classic, and here a big win against Bjorn as well. Bjorn has been a little bit quiet as of late. Bjorn has, similar to Cure, I would actually say Cure maybe has been more active than Bjorn as of recently. Bjorn maybe still, traversing more mountains and touching
True,
grass and going
actually, yeah.
outside. Hard to say, but
I never thought we'd see today where Bjorn is actually touching grass more than Cure.
crazy,
But
I
yeah,
know.
Cure, when he was silent on the online cups, he was like living his best life. When Team Liquid made their announcement where they were like for the 20th or 21st anniversary or 25th anniversary or something like that, where they were like, look at our StarCraft 2 roster, and they had like Skillus and Clem and whatnot. They had them on green screens, or they had them have their promotional material. Cure just took a selfie in the forest. That was it. It was like, yeah, I'm touching grass. But now it looks like, yeah, he's degenning it up once again, which it's about time.
There you go. There you go. And when it comes to Beyond, like again, he was less active in January. He was very active in December. In January, he again wasn't really playing in too much, and it's only recently. It's only over the past like week or so that we've seen more of Beyond, whether it's in the PL Invitational, whether it's in the other weeklies we're about to get into, and this show match as well. So it's great to see Beyond returning. Here we can see that he's still trying to like shake off a little bit of that rust, but regardless, big win for Creator because Creator was also inactive, right? They're hiking bunnies, as you were saying, like they were both out there touching grass, not playing as much StarCraft, but now they're back.
Yeah, now they're back and they're coming back swinging. It's a mountain. Changes you.
Yeah, there you go.
Sometimes for the better and sometimes not.
You say Mountain King, I think of Murden, and I think of him thunderclapping everyone.
Exactly. He learned the ways of the thunderclap.
Exactly.
And now he's just thunderclapping his way through tournaments.
Yeah, Creator just clapped Bjorn.
Yeah.
That's it. GG, well played, Creator. Big win over Bjorn. We'll take the series 4-2. Congratulations, very well done. That leads us into the Basilisk Big Brain Bouts number 84.
Yes, yeah, I was gonna say this time, big result for two reasons. One, no or very few technical issues on the side of Rotterdam this time, so they could actually play out all the games and have them all casted. But I very much so appreciate the theming of this week. The Italians all the way down.
Let's go. The what?
The Italian bout. All the way down. Even when we got to our main event, Rainer, the Spaghetti Boy, going up against Hero Marine, who actually, fun fact, also has Italian citizenship. So
yeah, he does.
very appropriate this week.
There you go. We had of course the Italian Jakub able to take down Ernic 3-2.
The Italian Ernic as well.
Exactly. But did go to the ace match. Shout out to Erniak. If you recall, I believe he was, if I'm not mistaken, he was a part of the SC Historian kind of like impromptu documentary series that he had made at the Brood War LAN.
Yeah, he was one of the organizers of the Brood War LAN. So yeah, definitely very involved and has actually been participating in a lot of big brain bouts recently as as the quote unquote amateur / semi-pro. As an amateur / semi-pro player, because they do have that typically in the big brain bouts. They do like to feature, different skill levels, I should say, in the big brain bouts.
I mean, I just realized something as well. I'm sorry to break your narrative here. You're talking about how like, oh, it was the Italian bout. Nah, not at all, mate. It's the NA boys: Erniak, Foxer, Future, and Gabe.
You think they're not Italian?
Not at all.
You think they're not Italian? That's where it comes from. We all know that the real Italy is in New Jersey. All right? Whatever the fuck they're doing over there in Europe, they're a bunch of cosplayers. They don't know nothing about Italy.
True. Did you
call New Jersey?
Did you try to start that with an Italian accent and then transition to a New Jersey accent? It was great. It's beautiful. But yeah, it was really cool to see some more NA representation here. Moja versus Foxer went all the way to the ace match. Did go the way of Moja. Future takes on Wayne 3-1. Future, he's one of those players that, again, he's not very active. He doesn't play in open cups, doesn't play in online tournaments. Just comes out of nowhere, takes on Wayne. Big win.
Yeah. Future, again, he's always that wild card because, like you said, he's not super active, but every time he participates in something, he comes out swinging. Whether it's a big brain bout, a show match like this, or whether it's Cheesadelphia, he's always the guy who people have their eyes on because, like, okay, Future, we know that he has potential, we know that he's won a lot in the past, but we haven't seen him recently. And then he wins the whole thing, and they're like, oh yeah, that's why we all had our eyes on Future to begin with. That's why we all consider him to be the favorite.
100%. So big win there for Future, big win for Morjat. Leads us into Raynor versus the Hero Marine, and Raynor does take the 3-0. Very strong showing there over Big Gabe.
Doing it for Italy.
There you go. Does take the win. I believe this is after. Was it last week where Raynor went up against his little brother? Is that happened recently as well? Am I crazy?
Yeah, that happened in not an OSC event, but in a whatchamacallit, in one of the weeklies. Yeah, I remember that.
For sure. So again, just Babe Marine just kind of setting his brother up, and he was well warmed up here for Gabe. So congratulations to Raynor. Again, just popping off in the Rift. I think he tweeted recently. I think Raynor recently hit Challenger or like GM in League.
Yeah, in League. And I remember people like, I remember the replies. They were like, "How does that translate? Like, what does that mean? Like, is that good?" Like, congratulations if it's good, but also if that's not good, then my condolences, I guess.
Yeah, he's been ripping it up quite a bit.
What do you is that a promotion? Like, that's good, right? Like, nobody knew what the hell he was talking about.
Yeah, why can't they just call it GM? You know, why can't we just have consistency between the games? God damn.
At least it's not Counter-Strike ranks.
Yo, I was
into, like,
about to bring
Master Sergeant Eagle Global fucking Inspector or whatever.
I was literally about to bring up CS:GO. Because you're right, they go like Eagle Sergeant Captain or whatever the hell, and I'm like,
their lowest rank is silver. Their lowest rank in CS:GO is silver, and then gold, and then you'd expect it to be platinum. No. Then it's like Global Sergeant Master or whatever, Elite, and then it goes into Eagle Scout, Scout 50 Merit Badges Edition, Elite. There you go into Grand Global Inspector of the Commissioner of the of the counterterrorism unit for Interpol or whatever. I think that's the highest rank in CS:GO, right? Interpol.
Yeah. There you go. God damn it! Just call him GM. Shaking
my head. It's like, we can't have them be Grandmaster because Master Chief is a Halo term, so we have to call them Grand Inspector or whatever. Speaking of, Halo doesn't have competitive ranks, but if they did, I imagine Master Chief would be the top one.
I would hope so.
Grand Master Chief.
But yeah, with that, GG will play. Shout out to all the players that did actually take the Bastards Big Rain bouts. That is, of course, a weekly show match series. So tune into next week for the next event. That leads us into the OSC Elite Rising Star number 13.5.
Yeah, not 13, not 14. 13.5. This is, I believe, the players who were knocked out of the whatchamacallit. This is basically Code A, is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I guess.
I think so. Yeah,
it's kind of.
It's Code A, right?
This
is Code A edition.
You say that. I think it's literally it's the same as OSC Elite Rising Star. It's just like just 13.5. Why? I don't know.
Well, there are fewer OSC points, I guess, up for grabs.
Well, why do they just call it 14?
Smaller map pool.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, because they're doing the Final Fantasy thing, all right? They're not just doing Final Fantasy 13. They also have 13 points. Yeah, they're doing the Kingdom Hearts thing where it's not Kingdom Hearts 2 Extra Edition or remodeled. It's Kingdom Hearts 2.8, right? Yeah. So this is the same idea.
What you're saying is they're going to play this.
It was sponsored by Square Enix. Exactly. It was sponsored by Squeenix.
Okay. So we're going to play this on the handhelds. On StarCraft 64.
On the Stream Deck, on the Steam Deck, not the Stream Deck. Those are two very different devices.
God damn it.
See, of which, Kuro, at one point we need to get you a Steam Deck so you can compare it to the Stream Deck.
But yeah, it looks like this is our next OC Rising star event that's taking place, and it's going to be taking place over the next couple of months, I would imagine. Uh, the first round did conclude, and here we have the full round of 16. We have a round of 16 here, which is again slowly progressing. I guess the biggest difference from what we're seeing here is that this is a single elimination bracket. Usually, the OSC Elite Rising Star is double elimination, so that means that instead of taking like 2 months, it will only take a month.
Exactly. That's why it's only 0.5 because it's a shorter one.
Ah. You
Yeah.
know what? I accept that explanation. Like unironically, it makes sense. It's only half because it's only single elimination.
Because the length is half. Yeah. The
Exactly.
length of the tournament is half.
Oh, God, there you go.
Yeah, but that's why it's also a little bit of a little bit of a smaller prize pool as well. If
Mhm.
you'll notice.
Yeah. Is slightly smaller here, which is why it's slightly less OSC points. But checking out the players, we have Nick Rect versus Demi, we have Mixu versus Night Phoenix,
Yeah.
Homono versus Percival,
Oh.
Mino VK versus Luna C, Young Yaka versus Hydra, Jimmy versus Art, Shameless versus Baby Marine, and Rebellion versus Eba.
Yeah, it looks like a couple of matches have already been played out. If you look at the challenge page, the Wikipedia of the show, the full result here. I was very surprised to see Hatsu in here.
Yeah. Hatsu has been very active as of late, playing in a lot of these
Yeah.
online OSC events. So it's been great to see. Coming into this, actually, I just realized these are all best of fives. Oh my God,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
So it's shorter than the double limb bracket, but not by that much.
Yeah. We're gonna have longer matches, longer series. Let's
Look,
go.
at a
Let's
certain
go.
point, I feel like we have to give Eddie an intervention. Be like, okay, look, these season-long brackets, we gotta do something about those.
It'll be fine.
Those quarterly year brackets.
I mean, our first result here, I would say, is a little bit surprising. I mean, Rebellion has been getting some pretty good results as of late. He was able to take down, of course, Homono in that show actually mentioned. But for Rebellion to defeat Eba, I would call this an upset. Like I rate Eba quite highly here, and Rebellion, he's been kind of like in the middle of the pack for a long time. So that's a big win for Rebellion.
I would say so as well. Yeah, it's huge results. I have to wonder if they ever played any PvP in that matchup. That might explain things a little bit, but yeah, if it was just straight up PvZ the entire time, I would agree with you on that one.
So congratulations there to Rebellion. Again, waiting for some future matches to conclude. A lot of these matches I feel like are going to be quite close in skill, and it's a little bit hard to call early on here. But yeah, some heavy hitters. Best of luck.
Mino VK versus Loon C. Those I imagine will be pretty close. Art versus Jumi. That's going to be, I think, probably one of the closest matches in this round, in the second round.
100%. So best of luck to Jimmy R, to Shameless Baby Marine, to all the competitors here in the round 16. And we'll be updating. We'll keep everyone up to date here throughout the course of the month, throughout the course of all these events, all these rounds, I should say, as they'll be wrapping up over the course of February, I'm sure.
Right?
We'll keep you guys updated. Keep you updated.
It's like we changed the format to make it shorter, but it lasts the same amount of time.
No.
For some inexplicable reason, yeah.
That does lead us into the OSC Season 12 Championship, which again has been progressing. We had some big names facing off against each other in the upper bracket round 3. We had Hero taking down Skillus. MaxPax took down Cure. We were praising Cure earlier for his recent performances, and hey, he even took down Creator again. By the way, in this tournament, he took down Nightmare as well, but does fall at the hands of MaxPax.
Indeed, he does. MaxPax's a little bit of a different beast over there, so he will be moving on for the upper bracket. It's kind of quarter, I guess quarterfinals. That's the semifinal, because we already have an opponent waiting in the semis based on the group stage. That's good. And the upper bracket quarterfinals, he's going to be facing Hero there for yet another PvP between the two of them. I feel like recently they've been going back and forth a bit more.
Oh yeah, yeah, they have been going back and forth. I mean, we'll get into that when it comes to the weekly Open Cups. But best of luck for that PvP. Likewise, Geralt takes down Cristiano up against Clem in the next round. So best of luck to Geralt, as it's going to be a big series and a big match for him. Again, we're going to be going over those series and those matches over the course of the next couple of weeks. So do tune into the CranKy Ducklings for the rest of the broadcast, for the upper bracket and for the lower bracket as well. A lot more matches to come for the Season 12 Championship. That leads us into a very special event that leads us into the Upper Cup Viewer Tournament.
Yeah, I love that name. Upper
It's
Cup
great. Yeah.
without a duck.
Beautiful, beautiful. I mean, there was almost, I mean, there was kind of a duck in it, as this was an event. I believe it was most likely related to the massive subathon that's been going on with Sal, with Arbitrary Zelda. Part of the subathon is that he hit a bunch of stretch goals, and a viewer tournament was one of them.
Indeed. So everybody who participated in the Upper Cup tournament, they were viewers of Upper Tree Zelda, at least in some form. They watch him at least a little bit. Whether it was his StarCraft or whether it was him playing other games, I will never forget. Recently, Smile played Majora's Mask for the first time, and Sal, obviously based on his name, Upper Tree Zelda, big Zelda fan, had some opinions on how Smile Smile chose to progress, and so he got fed up and eventually streamed it himself and was like, "This is how you do it."
I mean, it wasn't so much about how he progressed. He was playing with crowd control, and he was playing the game for the first time in his life with crowd control, and Sal loved it actually.
He did, but he also had opinions.
There you go. So that led us into the Upper Cup Viewer Tournament. Again, check out Sal's stream as he was covering it and casting it. And we had a really wide array of kind of like representation here. We had some of the more regular, like big names like Cristiano and Jimmy. By the way, for now the seeding, by the way, for Cristiano and Jimmy to face off in the early rounds is crazy, by the way. But they knocked each other out. Juanito Special got involved. He is a very rare sight nowadays in these tournaments. So it was great to see a return from him, I should say.
Yeah. I felt like he would never have I felt like he officially retired or unofficially decided to just never touch the game again after being forced to pair up with Cham in the 2v2 cup, but yeah, apparently he is still looking to get involved, at least in some smaller ways. So yeah, really nice to see Special back in this again. A lot of good NA representation, as you can imagine. You know, Sal, he streams at very NA friendly times, so yeah, obviously a lot of his viewers are from North America as well. And speaking of which, we of course had our grand finals, Cristiano winning, but having to fight really, really hard for it, facing Dolan in that full ace, in a best of 5 that went all the way to the ace match.
Yeah, big shout out to Dolan, of course, the ex-CranKy Duckling himself. We got a lot of love and we have a fond place in our hearts for Dolan. And yeah, really exciting to see him force the ace match as well. Again, I'm sure there were plenty of Dolan builds in that series. I'm sure there was a lot of cheese, a lot of aggression. I'm sure it was a great time to be had between Cristiano and Dolan. Coming into this tournament, I would have said that Cristiano and probably Jimmy were like the top 2 seeds of the event. But I'm very excited to see that, again, Dolan made him work for it. As you mentioned, it was not an easy finals for Cristiano whatsoever.
Oh yeah. Oh, they even had to go to the special map that they were to the special map, Killer's Mile, which I'm not gonna lie, I read that as Killer Mike at initially.
Oh no. Yeah, a map that I'm very unfamiliar with. I have no idea how that map looks, but really cool to see.
Wait, it says KS in parentheses. Does that stand for Kerrigan Survival?
No. It's the name of the map maker, which is Killer's Smile.
Okay, Killer's Smile.
Unfortunately,
it's literally the name of the map
Killer's
and
Smile.
Yeah.
Wait, Killer's Smile?
Yes.
Next time we'll get into play some Kerrigan Survival. Okay. We'll make that happen.
Next subathon.
But this is interesting here, as apparently there was a bonus prize if you scroll up towards the prize pool, where Cristiano, he actually never got an upgrade, and he got a bonus for not getting any forge upgrades, I should say, in the series.
For winning a game without getting upgrades, I should say. We should clarify. I'm pretty sure that's what the rules say. Yeah, game 4 in the finals, that was won by Cristiano, yeah.
There you go. There you go. So yeah, that's impressive there from Cristiano. So he was able to double dip basically. He got the prize for coming in first place and a bonus prize as well for no upgrades as well. So really impressive stuff. Apparently there was a bunch of KS maps. I don't know how often they were played and how often they were featured. But regardless, really cool to see.
I'm not sure if this one is something we're allowed to mention on stream, but 10,000 feet is the name of another map. That I forgot that this was an NA tournament, and I forgot that referred to a unit of measurement. I thought that was literally like 10,000 human feet, or just in the map.
God damn it, Yako. God damn it. I was thinking, I was like, why can't you say that? I see.
Quentin Tarantino coming in here,
God damn it,
directing that, like commissioning that map, like
Can confirm. Killer Smile, he likes his feet.
Yeah.
10,000.
He is actually Tarantino in disguise.
There you go. Can confirm. But yeah, really cool to see Sal host this event, and wishing the best when it comes to finishing up the rest of his kind of stretch goals. I don't know how far he's progressed with them, but I'm sure he will wrap them up once he does conclude his subathon, which I believe is still going on.
One of the goals has to be a tier list of Zelda games, I imagine.
True. He needs to rank them.
He needs to release it. He needs to release it so I can judge him.
Yes, exactly. Hopefully that comes next.
Opinions are in there.
So GG will play. Congratulations to Cristiano, to Dolan, to all the competitors here in this tournament. That leads us into Lima League, to the Lima League 2024/2025 Winter Finals. This was a seasonal event. After the weeklies, after the monthlies, it all led into this. It all led into the Winter Finals. It was a big 2-day event as well. 2 days. A bunch of matches, best of 3s, best of 5s, best of 7s as well. It was a crazy event. And yeah, in the end, we crowned our winter champion.
Indeed. Clem, which I think comes in as no surprise to most people. He actually... Oh no, he dropped the map to Cure. But that was, of course, because he was playing as Protoss in that time. Still eventually beat him with his PvT. So very impressive stuff there, yeah. But Clem, for the most part, he faced nothing but Protoss players. And as you can imagine, he thunderclapped them pretty hard. Shout out to Classic, though, for facing him in those grand finals. Classic, who actually managed to beat Hero in the lower bracket finals.
Yeah, I would say that Classic had a really impressive...
Hero twice, holy shit.
Yeah, Classic. He had a really impressive performance here in this tournament. He took down Shin and he took down Hero in the upper bracket and in the lower bracket. He denied any kind of Hero versus Clem match. I do think that Hero probably would have been a stronger contender against Clem, but I mean, hey, he was kind of kept away, right? Classic did deny Hero twice. We did cover these matches, and these were some really aggressive games. I want to say Hero versus Classic, the first best of 3, that was like a 10-minute series. Like it was. Like that was a little of all ins. Like these games were not long at all.
And you know what the best part about that matchup is? I actually can't tell who all and whom in Classic versus Hero. Probably both of them at different points, but yeah, they. I think most people would probably expect Hero to be the cheesier player, but Classic, he's known to pull out a cheeky all in every now and then of his own.
100%. So honestly, it was a really fun series. Both times between Hero and Classic. Do recommend it. Check out the VODs on our channel. Likewise, in this event, we had some nice performances out of course, not just Clem, but Rogue. Rogue had a crazy performance as well. Rogue, he went to the ace match against Hero. He took down Shin and he took down Zan as well. Like Rogue had a really good result. And it's always a lot of fun covering him just because Rogue, he rarely plays in online Open Cups.
Yeah. Well, nowadays I feel like he is getting more active in them, right? It was definitely back before he entered military service where it was very rare to see him in an online cup, but I think now he's kind of recognized that, hey, this is, where most pro players are. This is a good way to make some money and also practice at the same time, so might as well participate in them. I gotta say, though, Rogue versus Shin, that's a matchup I've been waiting for a very long time. I feel like Shin is kind of the mad scientist who comes up with the craziest builds, and then Rogue is the player who will look at them and say, okay, let me refine it down and make it, in theory, make it more effective, which is true, but also somehow make it even more insane sometimes.
Oh yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I guess that's the treat that we get from Elima League, because again, Rogue, he doesn't play in Open Cups except for Elima League. Elima League is something that he has been playing in, which is, why he's a part of this winter finals. And yeah, that ZVZ was honestly a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. There were a lot of mind games. A lot of mind games, a lot of fake outs as well. 2-base muta, fake 2-base muta. Something that's burned into my skull is, I think it was game number 2. No, sorry, game 2 on Ley Lines, or maybe it was game 1 on Frostline, where we had Rogue fake 2-base Roach, and he baited Shin into going for his own Ling Roach attack, and Rogue actually went for a macro hatch in the main base and went for a Ling Flood and completely caught Shin off guard. Like, there was like crazy builds like that where he was able to kind of like fake out or bait at Shin, and it was just a really impressive ZVZ. Like I just remember coming out of it just like a little bit in awe.
Every time you mention Korean players and you mention like, oh yeah, there was a fake out into a Ling Flood, I'm like, oh yeah, that's 100% Rogue. Yeah. He did that exact same thing to Solar, if I remember correctly, back in DreamHack Masters Dallas about a year ago. Yeah, about a year ago. Yeah.
100%. So Rogue, he's back at it. Is back at it, and yeah, it was really impressive to see Rogue perform the way that he did. Did go down to Hero in the end, and again, Hero went down to Classic. Hero took down Cure. Again, Hero, he had a solid run overall, except for the PvPs. Like the PvPs, I mean, in general, they're a lot more chaotic. They're a lot more intense.
I think this is the start of something. I think now Hero is going to be inspired to play Terran.
True.
Off-race Terran and never play a PvP again.
True. Avoid all the mirror matchups.
Or would it be Terran or would it be Zerg? I feel like historically, Heroes Zerg has yielded better results when it comes to his 2 off races. I only remember him playing Terran once, and that was in a show match against Oliveira, where he proxy racks every single game, and as you can imagine, lost that series. Somehow managed to take it all the way to the ace match, but ultimately fell to Oliveira's Protoss.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if Hero is going to be one of the few to off race here. I don't think we've seen a Protoss like actually properly off race yet. What I'm referring to is like, we've had Raynor, we've had Dark, we've had Clem, we've had Eba. Like a lot of players switch and avoid mirror matchups. I don't think we've seen a Protoss avoid PvP yet.
Well, yeah. The funny thing about that is because Protoss mechanically feels kind of in between Terran and Zerg in a way, right? So. That's why we have a lot of Terran players. Well, I say a lot of Terran players. It's mostly just Clem and sometimes Oliveira. Yeah, Oliveira, but Oliveira's now retired. I want to say who was it? Cure? No, it wasn't Cure. Was it Gumiho? No, it wasn't Gumiho. Some other I think I want to say Bjorn. I might have dreamt it, but I want to say Bjorn.
Maru did it once.
Maru did it once.
Yeah. I remember he actually played Protoss against Percival.
Yeah, not right. And I remember in the Asia games, I think he played Protoss a little bit as well. Yeah, so not Bjorn, the guy who Bjorn hates is who I was thinking of. The player who Bjorn hates the most. Yeah, Maru back in the day. Yeah, they would play Protoss, and obviously for Zerg, Raynor, he plays Protoss quite a bit. Dark has showed off his Protoss in the past in online cups, and other pros have been saying that his Protoss is on at least a high enough level to compete in as a pro gamer, but obviously not the best Protoss because he doesn't practice as much. But yeah, it's pro player level. But yeah, you're right. You don't really see too many Protoss players off race. I think way back in the day, MC used to play Zerg, but he would only play Zerg to help people practice, right? And it was the other Koreans who were saying like, "Yo, MC's Zerg, it's actually quite competitive. It's up there." But yeah, he never whipped it out in the tournament.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure we'll get there when it comes to the rest of the Open Cups. But yeah, I think Dark for the entirety of January, he's been playing purely Protoss against Zerg. Like he's just been avoiding ZVZ. But we'll get there here. Regardless, congratulations to Clem. Again, Clem looking very strong, very solid in this event. He is our winter champion. Something that I should emphasize before we move on to our next event is that we have yet to really confirm what is the future of Alima League. What I mean by that is Alima League is of course sponsored, is of course brought to you by Chijik. They do sponsor the event. They of course did contract Crank to run the event as well. And I believe they only did kind of contract, or they only kind of set up for the weeklies, the monthlies, and a winter finals. They have not actually confirmed any future weeklies yet. Like that's still a little bit in limbo as to whether or not we're going to see more Lima leagues.
Yeah. Yeah. Still waiting for that announcement. I mean, not the only announcement we're waiting for in StarCraft 2, but yeah, stay tuned and stay tuned on Twitter, Discord, and etc. and on this channel as well, because I'm sure eventually there is going to be an announcement, and yeah, we'll be covering it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should get more. I mean, Chijik, sorry, I should say Alima League was really successful, really successful on Chijik with Crank's channel. Like Crank was getting a lot of attention, a lot of viewership, a lot of hype from the Korean scene. So I'm sure they're very happy with what happened, but they might just try to renegotiate for maybe like another season, another 2 seasons, another year of Alima League. It's, I guess, yeah, kind of similar to what we're waiting for from EWC, where I'm sure Crank is in talks with Chijik for what they want to do, and I'm sure we'll get some news at some point as to what the future of Alima League is going to be.
Yeah, there was always a viewership spike on Chizuk whenever Oli Moly goes on. So yeah, I'm sure that they know that this is a big thing for them, and I mean they have access to the data and the stats. So if they were smart, they'd keep this going. But yeah,
we'll see.
As we're learning rapidly, a lot of them aren't.
Yeah, I mean, again, we'll see when the announcement, or if an announcement does arrive. Keep an eye out on Crank, because I'm sure Crank will be announcing the future of Alima League as well.
As well, I imagine, yeah.
True. Yeah, there's the Alima League Twitter account as well. So keep an eye out on those social medias. Otherwise, that does wrap up Alima League. That leads us into Sparkling Tuna Cup number 79. This is our weekly online tournament, and we had a massive bracket as well. I mean, again, for the past couple of weeks, Sparkling Tuna Cup has been getting a lot of attention.
Yeah, I was gonna say last week we actually broke our record when it came to participation in Sparkling Tuna Cup, I believe. Yeah, I could be thinking of Turtle Tussle, but I'm pretty sure it was Sparkling Tuna Cup. And yeah, I was kind of wondering if that was just going to be a one-off, if it's because it was somewhat aligned with like Lunar New Year and other stuff. So I'm sure that a lot of players have more free time to participate. But yeah, it looks like we are holding steady when it comes to participation and when it comes to signups here.
Yeah, it's really cool to see a lot more attention on our weeklies as of late. We had some, of course, new competitors and new signups for the first time. Great to see Ateshi facing off. Ateshi, of course, is a Brood War, or I should say a StarCraft Evolution Protoss player. So he was competing.
Played Warcraft 3 Evo as well, didn't he?
I believe he did. I believe he did play that as well. But yeah, Bjorn, he made his return. Bjorn, of course, he was the OG Sparkling Tuna Cup champion many years ago. He made his return, and he had a really solid run and solid performance. But what I should emphasize coming into this is that Nikic did actually force him to the A smash. Nikic faced off against Bjorn, and he was the only one to take a map off of Bjorn.
Oh yeah, very nicely done there by Nikic. I mean.
Yeah, he played really well. He basically on El Dorado, Nikic, he was behind. He lost a bunch of workers. He was in a really rough position, and he all-in the hell out of Bjorn.
Hell yeah.
He's able to catch him off guard with the virtual in. Exactly. He poked the bear. He poked the Nikic, man. He poked the Nikic. So, again, that was honestly a really close series. And even in Game 3, I'll be honest, Nikic was ahead. Like, Nikic, he had some really good moments in Game 3. It came down to the wire between Bjorn and Nikic. And I'll be honest, I can see a world where Nikic can beat Bjorn instead. In the end, Bjorn did take it, and Bjorn had a stronger showing against Christiana and Trigger. Shout out to Trigger, of course, as well. Was able to have his own performance. Just a plethora of PvPs there, taking down Rebellion, Geralt, and Art.
Yeah, Trigger, man, he's getting mostly in PvPs here. Really managed to show off, but unfortunately did end up falling in the PvT.
Oh yeah, I did end up falling in that best of 5. I want to give a brief shout out to Art though, because in this tournament, I don't know if you saw, but he actually took down Shameless and Nightmare. Like Art had a really good
Ooh,
showing here,
yeah.
taking down players that I did not expect him to.
Yeah, 2 players who are pretty much known for being snipers in the matchup. That's yeah, really good result here from Art.
100%, 100%. Like, he wasn't able to replicate that success in the semifinals. Again, Trigger has also been on the rise, but despite that, Art had a really strong performance here. So it's one of those things where Art, like every now and then, this happens where he just like spikes up in skill and then just takes down a big name, and then he
Yeah.
just lurks back in the shadow again, and like he just spends the next couple of months like recharging. It's yeah, always fun to see.
Yeah. Definitely good to show us off. I do have to Finaro you quite a bit here. Because I'm looking at the bracket and it looks like you did not cast the favorite.
Captain Fish?
Yeah.
Sure.
Semi-Tra Hedge.
Oh no. Wasn't able to cover the favorite, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, it was really cool to see. Apparently, Jumi played random against Cristiano. I don't know what the hell happened there, but that sounds crazy in my mind. But Cristiano to get the 2-0 over Jumi.
I think he saw that Eba got knocked out, and I was like, okay, I gotta do something for you.
True. He did it in honor of Eba.
Yeah.
Played random. There you go. Bit of a fun fact. Eba versus Nikic. Eba played random. He rolled random twice and he rolled Terran twice. Like he
I see that now, yeah.
his worst race twice against Nikic. I'm shaking my head.
It's a good warm up for Nikic, I guess.
True. Really, Nikic, he should be thankful.
Yeah.
So that congratulations to Björn for winning this week's event. And again, he had a very strong showing, at least in the TVP matchup. Honestly, his series against Trigger was really close, but again, 3-0 in the end. I do think the scoreline doesn't really do justice as to the games themselves. Trigger had a really strong showing there, but again, barely wasn't quite able to take it or take a map in the end. But that does lead us into the WarTV Monday number 22.
Indeed, it is. This took place just a couple of days ago. Yeah, it's weird because today's Wednesday, so it's like it feels like things happened sooner. But yeah, this took place just a couple of days ago. I just realized we're not going to be covering Turtle Tussle tonight. This hasn't happened yet, but yeah, this took place a couple of weeks ago. And as you were mentioning, we were kind of robbed of a close TVP in the finals of Holy Moly because Classic PVT isn't looking too great lately. But this week, though, in the WarTV Monday, we did manage to have a very close series, Clem versus Hero, which was taken in the end by Clem, but Hero had a very, very strong showing. It honestly looked like he was going to reverse sweep in the end, towards the end there, but Clem managed to clutch it out on the ace match.
100%. It was a wild series of wild grand finals. As you mentioned, early on, it was looking very dire. Clem was up 2-0, and it's like, oh, it's just going to be like a 3-0. Like, is it just going to end here and now? And Hero, he brought it back. You know, he went down swinging here, taking the game on King's Cove, on ley lines as well. Did force the ace match, did falter in the end, but it was a very, very hype series between Hero and Clem. So congratulations to Clem for becoming the champion. But again, he did have to work very hard for it. And as you said, we did kind of make up for that otherwise lost Elima League series that never quite did occur. But there were actually some really interesting things that did occur in this event outside of the finals. First things first, Clem, he 2-0'd Gumiho with Protoss. And obviously Clem, he hasn't played a PvT in a long time, but this is important because if you remember, Gumiho actually defeated Clem's Protoss at Home Story Cup. In Home Story Cup, Gumiho, he was able to win the entire event off of his matches against Clem, but Clem, he finally brings him down.
Oh yeah, with his Protoss as well. Keep that in mind. Which, actually, I'm trying to think which would be more impressive here. I think it's impressive either way, but Clem, you know, the reason why he plays Protoss is because he doesn't like TVT and he's weak as a TVT. So yeah, that definitely makes sense. But yeah, not to gloss things over, as you mentioned, Gumiho back in Home Story Cup, yeah, he did beat Clem in TVT and in TVP. Gumiho as well also beat Classic here in the round of 16. And I know that we just mentioned that Classic, he's not having a great time in PVT lately, but even still, on paper, you would imagine Classic would be higher than Gumiho.
Yeah. So, congratulations there to Gumiho for defeating Classic, for Clem for defeating Gumiho. I believe now the only Terran player in the world that Clem hasn't beaten with his Protoss is Maru. That's only because Maru doesn't play
We
anything.
haven't faced, yeah.
Yeah, like Maru doesn't play in open cups, doesn't play in these online events. But everyone else, like Cure has spawned a Clem, Bjorn, Gumiho, like Spirits as
Ryung,
well, like
Spirit,
Ryung, like
Terra.
all the other Terran
I
players
think it
out there,
was
they've
actually
all fallen
Ryung
short.
I think it was actually Ryung who inspired Clem to off race.
Huh?
Because he was like, well, I've never been in his TBT, but wait a
Yep,
minute.
100%. I mean, that was the last time we saw Clem play Terran was TBT, I should say, was in that series. I think it was the beginning of December in a Lima League where Clem faced off against Ryung. Game 1, he lost with his Terran, and then he just switched to Protoss and
Yeah.
never turned back.
He discovered the secret, the life hack of how to win
Exactly.
games.
Yeah,
Just play
play
Protoss.
Protoss. Oh no, exactly. Speaking of playing Protoss, another big event that did occur here in the Warriors TV Monday, I mean, is Nikita Skillus. If you look at his run, he did go down to
Yep.
hero, but he took down the best Protoss players in Europe to make it to the semifinals.
Yo, he beat Showtime and Max Pax.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why we didn't have Clem versus Max Pax this week. I did not notice that.
Yeah, Nikita made. He popped off. He had some very good series or very strong series against both Showtime and MaxFax. He had a crazy performance this tournament. Unfortunately, we weren't able to cover it. We were covering some of the other matches and some of the other portions of the bracket. We did cover Hero versus Skillus. This shouldn't be a surprise to you, Yaku. But Hero versus Skillus, that was like a 10-minute series. That was like
Yeah.
Hero cheesed the hell out of Skills, and it was so heartbreaking as well. And after covering that series, like we didn't get to watch the previous matches, but I would imagine that Skillus he had like some crazy like mid to late game and back and forth like proper series between Max Action Showtime, and he was denied any of that against Hero. And I mean, we can only speculate, of course, but I'm pretty sure that's kind of how the dynamic did play out, where Skills was actually able to play out his game a little bit more against the European Protosses, but against the Korean Protoss and Hero, he was denied that.
Yeah. A little bit of a different whatchamacallit, a little bit of a different approach to the game that they have.
He's an animal. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's...
That was me putting things politely. I don't wanna. Yeah.
I mean, we spoke about like Shin and Rogue having like a crazy ZVZ, and similarly with the Korean Protosses, right? We specifically spoke about that between Classic and Hero, right, in Lima League, where their matches in their series was really intense, really short, and very aggressive, and that's just how they do things in Korea. So again, shout out to Skills nonetheless for having that crazy run, and I hope that bodes well for the future here for Skills in his PvP, at least against the European Protosses.
Yeah.
GG, well played. Clem does take the win in the end. That leads us into the Monday Night Weeklies number 4, as this leads us into the European Weekly.
Yeah, a very fitting, very fitting one. I have to say. I mean, I've always said it. The Monday Night Weekly, that's a very good name, IMO. But it was particularly fitting this week.
As I mean, looks like history repeats itself in a sense here. Clem, he was able to blaze his way through. Shout out to Mana. Mana, the only player to take a map off of Clem in the upper bracket. But Clem, he just had nothing but TVPs, rods into Mana, into Showtime, into Max Packs. We actually did see that Clem versus Max Packs series. We actually got it in that best of 3 at least. But Max Packs, he was knocked out in a crazy turn of events because that lower bracket, pure best of ones. Crazy.
Yeah, we see Hero versus Trigger, a little bit of a repeat of the Sparkling Tuna Cup, and then we see Hero versus Max Pack and versus Max Packs, and Hero being able to take them out. A lot of PvP in there. I mean, I'm looking at the highest placing Zerg player was Fijant.
Yeah.
And he made it to the second round of the lower bracket finals. It's Fijant.
Yeah. Shout out to Fiance to overtake Nikic, right? Nikic, he was also competing, but barely didn't quite make it as far in the lower bracket. So yeah, really, really well done to earn that bonus prize. Again, for those that are curious, there's just very, I mean, even in the, we didn't get to mention it, but in the WarnerTV Monday, it was only Shin. Like, Shin was the only Zerg player. Here, it was Fiance that made a deep run, and there just isn't really a lot of, unfortunately, Zerg representation in a lot of these online events. So they are having their own initiative to try to incentivize and try to bolster some Zerg representation. I think it was the last time a laser got the bonus, but this time there was no laser.
Yeah. I think before that it was even crazier, because in the first inaugural Monday Night Weekly, there was a tie, and then to swing the prize pool, they decided, you know what, we'll carry it over, or carry the bounty over to next week, and then yeah, it got a little bit larger, and that was when was that the one that the laser won?
Yeah, that was the one, the laser one.
Yeah.
True. So yeah, congratulations to Fian for being the highest placing Zerg player, and shout out to Clem and Hero for getting into that top 2 upper echelon as well. Basically just a rematch. And this has been happening recently where Hero, this happened last week as well. He played in both. It's very rare. It's very rare to see Koreans play in both the Korean weekly and the European weekly, but 2 weeks in a row, Hero, he's going full degen.
We used to have Björn doing that, but then Björn decided to start touching grass, so
yeah.
Doesn't do it as often nowadays.
So a crazy result there from Hero. Also, big shout out to Geralt. I want to give him a little bit of praise here very quickly, because Geralt, he 2-0'd Nikita and he 2-1 Hero. Like, Geralt, he popped off in the upper bracket. That's crazy.
True. I didn't even notice that. Yeah, the reason why Hero was in the lower bracket in the first place was because Geralt popped off.
Yeah, big wins out of Geralt. I mean, hey, we pointed out that Geralt, he took down Cristiano earlier in the OSC Season 12 Championship, and now taking down some other big Protoss players. So some crazy results coming from Geralt. He has been improving so much here. So, yeah, big shout-outs. He did really well for himself, and doesn't quite make it into the top 4 to earn any prize money. But, I mean, this bodes well moving forward. I mean, like, PvP is a pretty valuable matchup to be good at. Like, right now, like, this, it bodes well for it.
How you make money nowadays. By beating Protoss.
No. So GG will play. That leads us into the Pigastore Monday number 18, where we do have our American, our NA Weekly.
Yeah, and we do have Hero once again in the grand finals, this time in the PvP, facing off against MaxFax, and yeah, MaxFax ended up managing to take it in the end against Hero.
Yeah, Hero with the instead of the triple crown, the triple Kong, right? Like second place, 3 tournaments in a row in one day. That's crazy.
Ooh, going after Sue. No.
Oh my god. I mean, that's in 24 hours, 3 second places. That's impressive. That's definitely impressive.
Yeah. I should take out Solar as well to get that second place finish.
Yeah, I did take it in Solar. There was a fun series between Dark and Solar where Dark did play Protoss, but only game 1. Dark played Protoss game 1, and then in game 2 he did switch to Zerg. But they had a fun back and forth. Solar was able to take it in the end. There was a clutch ace match here, of course, between Hero and Solar, and MaxFax did take it in the end. Did drop a map to Hero in the finals. That is true. There was a bit of a back and forth, but overall, MaxFax, he finally claims his win, as of course Clem won the previous 2 weeklies, and now MaxFax wins this one.
Yep.
No Clem this time.
None to worry about. It's too busy not being asleep.
Yeah, there you go.
Touching grass.
Crazy.
The best time to touch grass is at night, though, when it's not hot.
So congratulations there to
burn your hand.
It's coarse and rough, and it gets everywhere.
Yeah.
There you go.
Including your mouth. Yeah, you're supposed to eat it, apparently.
Okay. As MaxFax does claim the win, that leads us into a new Wardy event that did begin and is soon going to be taking place. We have the Wardy TV February 2025 qualifier, which did take place a couple of days ago.
Yeah, so again, this was a qualifier, but we did have a full-on bracket, and unlike most qualifiers, we actually had cash prizes for the top 2 players. So top 4 do secure their spot. They will be seeded into the main event, but you still have the semifinals after that, and you still have the grand finals after that, because first place and second place do get some money.
Yeah, so congratulations to our top 4 players here. We got to even see Ryung. It's been a while, but yeah, we saw Ryung competing here. Went to the ace match against Showtime. In the end, we had Hero, Zaun, Cure, and Showtime qualifying for that main event. So 3 Protoss players and our 1 lone Terran. And congratulations to Cure. We did mention earlier that Cure, he may be struggling in some of the other weekly events, but no, here in the qualifier takes on Showtime and Hero as well.
Indeed, he does. Once again, that's yet another second place here for Hero in a weekly event. Although I say weekly, this isn't weekly. This is an online open qualifier.
True. Regardless, congratulations to Cure. Shout out to Hero for the second place. Zaun, he was able to qualify as well. Looking forward to seeing more of Zaun and Showtime as well. And this will actually lead us into the main event. Switching over to the WarnerTV February tournament here. The group stage is underway. Group A has just begun. And Yaku, you know what time it is. It's time to host some predictions.
Oh. Well, we still have 2 yet to be determined players for the last 2 groups, so.
True. We'll focus on A and B then. So coming into Group A, we have Geralt. Looks like, again, they're already playing out their matches. Oh my, he already 2-1 Creator. That's crazy. Mate, he's popping off in PvP. Oh, Geralt. Oh my god. But we have Geralt, we have Björn, Shin, Clem, and Creator. It looks like top 3 advance on into the next round.
Yep. Top 3 advance are obviously first place, getting a little bit of a better seed. A little bit of an event seed over there. So 3 players to make it through.
All right. Who you feeling? Who you feeling, Yaku? Top 3.
I think recently, I mean, I was going to predict this anyway, just because I'm always rooting for this player. But I think recently, just looking at the results that we've just seen, he seems to be popping off quite a bit. So I'm going to say Creator is definitely one of those 3.
Okay.
He lost to Geralt, but I mean, went all the way to the ace match, and I mean, that's Geralt. So I would expect, Geralt has been really demonstrating some very strong showings in the PvP matchups, but looking at some of these other matchups, I mean, versus Clem, that's going to be difficult, but I could see Creator taking a map, and that could just be enough to push him over the edge there, and I can absolutely see Creator beating Björn and Shin, especially after the week that he's had, so I'm going to say Creator is one of them. I think it's hard to not predict Clem.
Yep.
As I feel like you just got to give Clem one of those spots. And then the third one, that's a little bit tougher. Right now, Geralt is at the top, but he's only played 1 match so far. And it was a PvP, and his only PvP, so it's a little bit hard to say for Geralt. Shin and Björn, I can also imagine. You know what? Since I said Creator, I feel like I have to say Björn. They are mountain buddies, so...
Okay.
I'm gonna go with Clem, Creator, and Björn.
Okay. Solid picks here. Solid picks, Yaku. I have one bonus prediction for you, Yaku. Is Clem going to beat Björn with his Protoss in this group?
I think Clem is gonna flex on Björn and play Terran and show, just to flex on him.
Okay.
He's already beaten him with his Protoss, and he's like, I can beat you with Protoss. I can beat anyone with Protoss, but you know what?
True.
You know what? The real challenge, the real way for me to prove and to flex on you, Björn, is to beat you with my Terran. And I think Clem can absolutely do that. I think that they are both very similar in terms of their playstyle, very high mechanic and fast-paced, aggressive players. And so I just want to see TBT between Clem and Björn because I think that would be very fast-paced and exciting.
Fair enough. You know what? I agree. I think it would be fun. I think it'd be fast-paced. I think it'd be exciting. I don't think we're going to see it. I think he's going to play Protoss.
Clem, he's probably going to play it safe against a Mountain King. So
he probably will. But I agree. I agree. I think it's a lot of fun whenever we see Björn's TVT specifically and Clem as well. So It's a shame that we haven't seen Clem's TVT in like 2 months, but maybe we might see it here. Fingers crossed. I'd probably have to echo your sentiments. I think Clem is probably a sure thing. I'm going to say I think I agree. I think Creator over the past week has been looking really impressive, and I have a hard time betting against Creator right now. So I think I'm going to go Clem, Creator, and instead of Beyond, I think I'm going to settle on Shin here.
Oh,
That's my heart picking that though, because
because you
I'll be
want a
honest.
Zerg player
True,
in
true.
there.
But Shin, he has been looking a little bit lackluster this week. This week I think Shin, his results haven't been as strong as they usually are. So I do think that Shin, he's a little bit less informed, specifically over the past like 7 or maybe 10 days, sort of thing. Maybe that's just recently, but yeah, I definitely actually I think my head says Beyond, but my heart says Shin.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like Shin and Beyond, those two are very, very close. So in in terms of skill level, they also go back and forth quite a bit. And I also wouldn't be surprised if Geralt is able to beat at least one of them, and due to map score, potentially get a bit of an upset. So yeah, that third place is a little bit hard to predict, but yeah, I'm with you on that. Both my head and my heart says Beyond, just because I feel like it feels a little bit wrong to predict Creator without Beyond nowadays. So
That's fair. That's fair. That leads us into Group B, which is going to be taking place tomorrow. Here we have a Solar, Hero, Showtime, Hearthstone, and
okay.
Cure. Oh boy.
And I feel like I would just, yeah, this is going to be an echo of Group A in quite a bit. I feel like Cure has shown off some very good results this week, so I'm going to be betting on Cure as one of those players. Hero, I feel like he has to make it out second in this group. Just to follow the pattern that he's had so far this week. Third player, a little bit harder to predict. I don't think it's going to be Solar, personally. So between Showtime and Hearthstone, this is a tough one because my heart wants both of them to make it out, but only one of them can. I feel like you're going to predict Hearthstone, so I'll go with Showtime.
Why would I go for the captain? Oh my god.
Because you like the captain.
True.
Yeah. Because you like the capital, so,
El Capitan, sí.
El Capitan.
I think I'm going to have to agree with you 100% here. I think it's going to be Hero, Cure, and Showtime. I agree in the sense that, I love...
I'll pick Hearthstone then.
Okay.
If you're going to pick Showtime.
God damn it. I think I got a lot of love for Solar, don't get me wrong, but I feel like Solar's been on his villain arc for a while, and I'm worried that he's gonna stay in his villain arc.
We need him to hit rock bottom first. He hasn't gone fully rock bottom yet.
I think he has, I'll be honest, but
he can still go lower, I feel.
Oh, okay.
Because here's the thing, he's still placing well enough to win prize money.
True.
He needs to be knocked out immediately. Get nothing.
No.
Despite staying up for 25 hours.
I mean, I think Sola has been he's been jumping back on that horse as of late, and I do think he's playing well. But Sola's like Showtime and Hero and Cure as well, so I think it's gonna be a hard group. I think my brain says Hero, Showtime, and Cure. I would love to see Sola make it through. I'd love to see some Zerg representation in this tournament, but I don't know how much Zerg representation is really gonna be, to be honest.
I would like to see Solar come in 4th place with a map score difference of just 1. Or even a tied map score.
Yeah, make it a tied map score. Yeah,
map score, but the head-to-head. But he bring it to the head-to-head. Lost in the head-to-head. That I think will get him on the road deeper into the smudge. We'll bring him deeper into the dark side.
You're an animal.
And then he'll discover true power at the end of it.
Oh no. It's possible. So best of luck to all those players. Coming into Group C, it's hard to predict. As you mentioned, Group C and Group D, we are missing some players. There's still some invites left to go out. I feel like we're saying this for the 4th time now for OSC Events.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that one of these invited players is Trigger.
Yep.
Like,
you know what? I'm gonna preemptively predict for Group C and Group D, the to be determined player is gonna make it out for both groups.
Okay. I can see that. I can see that. Yeah. Do you think Trigger? Okay, no. Okay, better
I think
better
Trigger
predictions.
will be in Group D.
Group what? Group D?
Yeah, I think Trigger will be invited to
Well,
Group D.
I was going to say, who do you think the invited players are going to be? I feel like Trigger needs to be one of them, but who would the other be?
Australia, obviously.
No. Okay. Your picks are Trigger and Australia. God, who are we seeing?
I know
Who
Australia.
are we not seeing?
I mean, I guess Australia is 50-50, right? Because Wardy does
Mm.
try to schedule this to be a bit more Korea and Asia
Yeah.
friendly when it comes to
Exactly.
time. And Australia, he's not a D-Gen. I think it's just a regional thing. I think he comes from the similar area as Trigger. So, yeah, two of them aren't D-Gens enough. So, aren't really D-Gens. Trigger is still in Korea as far as I can tell. So, yeah, it suits his non-D-Gen lifestyle, but Australia would be a bit more difficult. But he's not a bad choice usually.
Yeah, like personally, I would love to see Trigger in Australia, but as you mentioned, this is just a really rough time for NA. Like, this is a really rough tournament, I mean, for NA players. So I don't know if Australia is going to be a part of that. Who else are we missing here? I mean, we have Nikita, we have Showtime, we have
Mana.
Oh, there's no Max Packs here. Wait, what?
No Max Packs. And there's no
I
Mana.
just realized. Yeah, I just realized. Yeah, there's no Mana, there's no Max Packs. I like how we're both, regardless of who it's gonna be, we're both assuming it's gonna be double Protoss. I think.
Yeah.
It's.
I mean, who else
Yeah.
is gonna play in an online cup?
True. It has to be. I'm gonna say Trigger and.
We're already pushing it when it comes to Zerg. We already have 4 Zerg players, so.
I mean, there's only one Zerg player in each group. I think they're leaving it to that. I'm gonna say Trigger and Mana. You sold me on Mana. I think because I think if it was Max Packs, it would have already been announced, 100%.
Yeah.
Right? Like he would have already been here, for sure.
Okay, you're picking Mana. And I think that Mana is probably somebody you can rely on quite a bit here, but just for diversity's sake, I'm gonna guess somebody different, and I'm gonna guess not Max Packs. It has to be a Protoss player. You know what? I'm gonna guess Classic.
Okay. Oh, true. Yeah. Classic. He's not here either. True. I think that's a solid pick. For who could be chosen. Coming into Group C, we have Skillus, Gumiho, Rogue, Spirit, and TBD. Who do you think the other two are going to be? You already predicted whoever's that final pick is going to make it through. Who are the other two?
Right. So for Group C, I feel like Classic's going to be TBD, so Classic going to be making it out. The other two, I think Skillus has had a really good showing recently. So I'm going to go for Skillus. And then my brain is always telling me to bet on Rogue, but my heart is never able to. My heart is never able to to overcome my brain there. So Gumiho and Spirit. I feel like Spirit is enough of a wild card that I wouldn't be surprised if he makes it out, but this is going to be a heart pick, and I'm going to go with Gumiho just because I like Gumiho.
Okay. So Nikita, Gumiho, and Classic. I'm gonna go Nikita, Classic,
and if it's not Classic, then it's whoever else is the last.
Yeah. I'm gonna go Nikita, TBD, and you know, it's a hard one. My head says Gumiho, my heart says Piotr.
My head and my heart are the opposite of that, where it's my head is saying Piotr, but my heart is saying Gumiho.
I'm having a hard time picking between Gumiho and Piotr, and I think I'm gonna settle on. Like Piotr's been looking really good in StarCraft Evolution. He
has,
and so looking really good.
That gives him insight, you know.
True, that does give him some insight. Doesn't help him here, but it gives him some insight in life. I'm sure.
Yeah. He introspects better after playing a match of SC2 Evo. Yeah. He goes to his journal and he's like, I figured something out recently about myself.
I think I'm going. I think I have to go Gumiho. I'm picturing them playing against each other, and I think I see Gumiho coming out on top in the TVT as well. So I'm gonna go Gumiho for now. That leads us into Group D, the final group. Group D.
Yeah, when you put it that way, that's like makes it easier for the head or my head a little bit because I've said this before, and I think it's a little bit more in question now as it was a couple of months ago, but I do still think that Gumiho probably has the best TBT right now, currently.
Oh yeah, his TVT is crazy good right now. So yeah, it's going to be a hard one to bring down in that matchup. Coming into Group D, we have Bunny, Zan, Ryung, Yang Yakov, and To Be Determined. As we said earlier, I would imagine whoever's going to be TBD, I'm going to be betting on them to make it through, whether it's Trigger, Classic, or To Be Determined. God, I got a lot of love for
I'm
Ryung,
I'm going full
100%.
heart. I'm going full heart in this one. Ryung, Bunny,
Okay,
TBD.
okay. Bold move.
Especially just
I'm
because I
gonna.
feel like it's been a while since we've seen Bunny.
It has. I'm a big Bunny fan. I'm gonna go TBD, Zound, and Bunny. I feel
Okay, all right.
I feel bad going against the tuna, but like I've seen a lot of Zound recently. I can't bet against Zound. I can't do it. I can't do
True,
it.
and Zound, yeah, his PBT is still pretty good. It was, we were kind of going over some of his early exits in some tournaments recently. Mostly that was in PvP. Like mostly he's been losing in PvP, and obviously if you have Trigger in this group, then I feel like Trigger would come over, would be able to beat Zound. Just his PvP is looking absolutely insane. Zound versus Classic, I feel like could go either way. Zound versus Mana, also I think could go either way, but I feel like Zound versus Mana would be pretty close.
For sure. I can see it being close as well. But regardless, best of luck to all these players. We're going to be giving you some updates next week. Again, the group stage will conclude next week as well. By the time we get our next podcast, the group stage should be done, and we should be getting into the playoff bracket. So we'll be keeping you updated with what comes next in this tournament. Otherwise, that leads us into the final event here of the week, the Wardy TV Backers Brawl, which is also actually announced but not yet taking place. It looks like it's going to be taking place over the next couple of days. It's just been announced, and we only have our players that have been invited and the qualifiers as well.
Yeah, well, I say first qualifier. I imagine there's going to be another one because actually no, you don't need another one. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, 8 player. Yeah, 8 players. There we go. Trigger actually managed to make it through from the qualifiers, so yeah, it's a sign.
Yeah, quickly checking the qualifier.
Oh no, never mind. I clicked on the qualifier. It brought me to challenge. I was like, oh, it already got played out. I was like, no, this is just a qualifier bracket.
Yeah, so when it comes to the qualifier, Trigger, he took down Creator, big win in the PvP. He took down Hearthstone as well. So did it pop off in that Protoss versus Protoss, and the final qualifying match was not played out. So you just top 2. Big PvP wins there for Trigger. But glossing over it a little bit here, Hearthstone beat Bunny. He beat Bunny to make it to that semifinals. That's a pretty big win for Hearthstone.
I'm feeling more confident in my pick for the capital.
So there you go. Meanwhile, that leads us into our upper portion of that qualifier. Bjorn took down Skillus, Nikita 2-1. He took down Zound, went to the ace match, went all the way to game 5. Bjorn versus Zound. Zound, he was so close to qualifying, barely did not.
Yeah, in the end, did fall to Bjorn's TVP. And so those are the 2 qualified players alongside with our 6 invited players: Hero, MaxPax, Clem, Gumiho, and Shin as the sole Zerg player.
Oh yeah, and I just realized there is a bonus prize, as you can see, best off-race performance. So Wardy, he's incentivizing players to off-race.
Yep.
I feel like
it's kind of weird having.
Though.
Yeah, it's kind of weird having that incentive in a tournament where you're also inviting Clem to play in.
100%.
We know that his Protoss is very competitive.
Well, I mean, his Protoss is like arguably best Protoss in Europe. Like
yeah,
like
best PvP definitely.
Yeah. So I'm gonna call out Wardy a little bit here. Best off-race performance. I don't think you should count Clem's Protoss as off-race. I don't think that's fair.
I think at this point it's equal to his Terran.
Yeah. It's part of his main race. So I hope that isn't just like a Clem bonus. I'm hoping that that we get that he does take that into account, because I don't think it'd be fair if Clem gets that for playing Protoss.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think that they actually added the Protoss symbol next to Clem's name on Wikipedia, but no, not yet. He still considers Terran to be the main race, his main race.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll see what happens there. Yeah, we'll see. For the off race award. Otherwise, best of luck. By the time we get the next podcast, this event should have concluded, as the event is going to be taking place over the next couple of days. So best of luck to all the competitors. Quick predictions, Yaku. Who wins this? Who wins the tournament?
Trigger.
Trigger. Ooh. Okay.
In fact, you know what? Trigger Beyond Finals.
Trigger Beyond. Okay. Okay, you think Beyond's gonna beat Clem's Protoss? Or do you think Trigger's gonna beat his Protoss? what's happening in the mind here? Who's beating Clem?
I think Bjorn is gonna off race a Zerg, and he's just gonna beat Clem's Protoss, because Clem he won't realize that Bjorn is gonna off race a Zerg, so he'll pick Protoss when he should have picked Terran, and then he'll be locked in.
There you go. That's how you get it.
Mind games coming in there.
Okay. Oh God, do I believe in the power of Hero? I'm a big Hero fan.
True, he has to come in second.
True. I'm gonna say Clem wins. I'm gonna be boring. I'm gonna say Clem. He's gonna win. He's gonna win here.
Will he win the bonus?
He better not. I don't want him to. I think it'll be a shame if he wins the bonus prize. Calling it now. Just saying. We're gonna have some words with old mate Wardy if that happens. I'm hoping for like a Clem, like Beyond finals. I want a spicy finals. Right. I don't want to see like we've been getting a lot of like Clem versus Hero, Clem versus Max Fax. It'd be fun if there's like a non TVP finals. that'd be what I.
You know what? Clem playing Zerg versus Beyond playing Protoss.
Yeah, that's what I want. Let's go. Best of luck. Do you think Gumiho would have the best off race? Unironically, didn't he play random back in the day?
He did play random back in the day. He actually signed up for a GSL as random, and then got knocked out in the second round or something like that. Which is when he realized, wait a minute, mech play.
True.
Yeah, I have to imagine that Gumiho still does occasionally play some of the other races. I know it's very common. Like TY back in the day mentioned that to warm up for practice for the day, he would play just one game as Protoss. So it's pretty common for pro players to do something like that, or just occasionally play something different.
Yeah. I guess that's maybe one of the most exciting things about this tournament is because the off race performance award. It incentivizes some of these other players to try other races. So we'll see.
I hope
that
it
happens.
does. I hope it does, because it's very possible they'll look at it and be like, "Oh, Clem's gonna be playing Protoss anyway, so I should just focus on getting far in this tournament instead of trying to win the bonus."
You're not wrong. That may happen. But with that, I believe that wraps up the final events for the week. If you want to take part in some of these tournaments in the qualifiers or some of the Open Cups, then check out the sign-up list. The sign-up list is live, is here, is ready for you. We have some amateur events as well. We have the Magic Up Masters bi-weekly, the KSL, the Passioncraft Emerging Stars, STC, Hub Cup, and many others. Check out the sign-up list. Check out the tournaments.
Yeah, some of them are global, some of them are regional, some of them are global but focused on one region.
There you go. Meanwhile, you can also support us on Patreon if you wish. ! Patreon in the chat, and you'll get a link to our Patreon page where the page does fund our tournaments. Tournaments like Masters 1 Open, Sea Duckling Open, and Sparkling Tuna Cup as well. It is all funded via Patreon. We have been getting a lot of support over the past couple of months. Thank you so much for all the patrons that we do have and all the patrons that we have been getting recently. So thank you so much. Hope you enjoy the content. Hope you enjoy the tournaments, and help us reach that next goal together.
Yeah, we're pretty dang close, actually.
Yeah, we're very close.
A couple more pledges coming in here, or just one really big pledge.
Yes, we're so close to the 400 USD per month prize pool. That would be to boost the Sparkling Tuna Cup to just not top 2 but top 4, so we can soon pay out top 4 in Sparkling Tuna Cup. So help us reach that goal, as 100% of the money on Patreon goes towards our tournaments, so do consider checking that out. Otherwise, Yaku,
Yes.
Anything else you want to add here before we head off? Do we have plans
Go
for
Birds!
another Brood War stream?
Not at all. I just got even more. I just got even busier. I just got
Okay.
even busier this week. So there are
Okay.
no plans in the works at all, and yeah, most likely I'm not going to be streaming whatsoever in February. So we'll see what happens in March if I'm if I have some free time in March.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. So keep an eye out on Yaku's channel, Yaku Zaku, for links to his channel, for links to his Twitter, as well as Twitch. Otherwise, you can follow myself at @_VIP. I try to stream on my channel, but typically whenever I'm not casting, and we're usually casting twice a day, every single day here on the CranKy Ducklings. Our next broadcast is going to be in 10.5 hours time. We're going to be casting the OSC season 12 championship, the low bracket round number 3. So we're going to be covering some more OSC events in 10.5 hours, and we have the Little League Cup day 1 tomorrow afternoon as well.
Yeah.
So we have plenty of content on the channel, plenty more StarCraft to come.
And don't forget the Final Fantasy event.
True. We did do it. It's very disappointing. Was that?
Yeah, I was surprised. I left for a little while to go do something else. I came back. The stream was offline. I was like, oh, it's really short this year, huh?
Yeah, it was short and it was questionable when it came to its story. But yeah, you can follow me at @VIP for some personal ladder sessions or some Final Fantasy streams as well. So do check it out if you're interested. Otherwise, we have plenty of content throughout the week when it comes to events that are coming up on the channel cast. Yaku, do you have anything you want to say before we head off for the night?
Go Birds!
Go Birds. There you go. Beautiful. GG. Well played. We'll see you guys tomorrow or next time for some more StarCraft. See you then.
See you then.
Ciao.
Bella.